I just want to say congratulations. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm just going to encourage you all to take your seats. We're going to start in about a minute. We are, of course, off schedule already, but I knew this was going to happen because you all love to talk to each other. So. Video.
Hello, and welcome to the LISC Seminar 2024. We're thrilled to have you join us as we come together to shape a brighter future for rural America. At LISC, we believe that thriving communities are built on the strength and resilience of their people. Every community, no matter how small or remote, deserves the opportunity to grow, prosper, and succeed. Across the nation, rural communities are breaking barriers, creating innovative solutions, and unlocking new opportunities for their residents. At Rural LISC, we know that when local leaders, community organizations, businesses, and residents join forces, extraordinary things happen. Today, we are here with a shared mission to empower communities, overcome economic challenges, and pave the way for sustainable, inclusive growth. This seminar isn't just about learning, it's about igniting action. Together, we'll explore groundbreaking ideas, including those around small business development, workforce growth, and community transformation, and the power of connection. As you connect with speakers, panelists, and fellow leaders, remember that the discussion we have today can spark lasting change. Let's work together to ensure the future is bright for every rural community. Thank you for being a part of the Rural LISC Seminar 2024. Let's connect, innovate, and empower the communities we serve.
I hope you guys recognize that video. Those are features from when we were in California, Southern California last year. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nadia Villagrán. I'm the Director of Rural LISC and a Vice President with Local Initiative Support Corporation. You guys are so sweet. I needed that. So this is the official opening of our 2024 Rural LISC Seminar, Maximizing Your Partnership with LISC. While I have been to many seminars in my years with the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition and over the last 8 years at LISC, this is my first at the helm of this incredible team, helping to lead this important work in our beautiful rural America. For those of you who are like me, who are also Rural LISC seminar regulars, you will notice a few new things. For one, the Rural LISC team has quite a few new faces. Over the last year, I've had the great fortune to welcome 11 new colleagues to the rural team, essentially doubling our number of rural subject matter experts, including folks you'll meet today like John Juarez, who started yesterday. He leads our lending work. Joshua Williams, who is working closely with Krista Vinson, who, by the way, was recently promoted to Director of Digital Equity and Strategic Partnerships. We have also further promoted from within, including Malaku Gebrselassie, who is now our Director of Finance, and Emily Avery, who is our Rural LISC Deputy Director. Yay. I encourage you all to look at the slide deck that we were supposed to feature this morning at breakfast, but we'll show off periodically in this ballroom to help place names, faces, and program priorities to our growing team, and hope you will join me in congratulating and welcoming all to our rural family. It's hard to believe that this is Rural LISC's 29th year. We will be sharing more about our plans to ring in our 30th with flair in 2025, including returning to Washington, D.C. for the 2025 Rural LISC Seminar in June. So put that on your calendars, the week of the 16th. Now more than ever, it is essential that we share the impact and value of our collective work with our elected officials in Washington, D.C. Rest assured that today's agenda includes more on that from Mark Kudlowitz, LISC Senior Director of Federal Policy. He will help shed some light on the impacts of the impending change in administration, but the bottom line is we are ready to ascend on the hill to help share our great work in rural with the new faces in the Capitol. I think we all recognize that Little Rock is not exactly a rural community. Yet we know how important it is to have allies in rural, suburban, and urban communities across the country that recognize that their regional economic success is tied directly to the stability and economic progress of the surrounding rural places. Little Rock benefits every day from a stable surrounding rural economy. For this reason, we have selected this beautiful city in which to hold one of the largest convenings of rural leaders, advocates, and friends. And I'm happy to invite Little Rock's own Mayor Frank Scott Jr., who I think just walked in, perfect timing, to join me on the stage for a special welcome. As he makes his way up, I'll share a little bit about his background. Now, Mayor Scott, I have read that you are a committed advocate for Southwest Little Rock, where you grew up and still live today, and that throughout your nearly 6 years as mayor, have committed yourself to working with city leaders to unite Little Rock's diverse neighborhoods by creating new opportunities for educational growth, enhanced public safety, and improving the quality of life. It's incredible work. Welcome, Mayor Scott.
Well, thank you so much for that kind invitation. It's truly an honor to be before you as you all have made the decision to host your seminar here. We here at the City of Little Rock, Arkansas State Capital City, we don't take it lightly, nor do we miss the moment that you decided to come here. And so we want to make certain that you enjoy yourself, you have a great time. And if you have a wallet or a purse or a debit card or Cash App or PayPal, Venmo or Zelle, we want you to spend as much money as possible here. We want you to spur the economy. We hear that there are so many great things to do. We know that, particularly if you're going to be here tonight, if you follow me on social media, I just posted this recently, which you wouldn't because many of you aren't from here. But right across the street is the Capitol Hotel. And so the Capitol Hotel is one of the most historic hotels here in the state's capital city. Not only is it historic from the age standpoint, but what it means from a number of different things in Arkansas politics. I won't delve into giving you Arkansas political history, but one of the great things we do annually is to light up our Christmas tree. So if you're looking for any great Instagram photos, please just walk across the street. And as you do that and have fun tonight, have some nice adult beverages, a dinner, things of that nature. So I gave my spiel on how to welcome you all right? But I'm here today really just to share my appreciation on what you mean for rural America. Many times, Arkansas being a small state and Little Rock being the largest city in a very small state. I like to tell people Houston is larger than the state of Arkansas. And so that's the reason why I share that is that while Little Rock, we love to say is a microcosm of the United States, is both rural and urban at the same time. And we have the same realities as we are a mid-sized city, but have the same realities as many big cities because we're the largest, most diverse city in a very small state. Why do I say that? The integral work that you all are doing right now helps those that have historically have not been paid attention to, have been unserved, underserved, and forgotten about. That's why you guys woke up this morning. As I see Ms. Forte and what she does, but we're about it here in Little Rock. We have to have more people who are focused on the economy at every level. What are we doing to increase the per capita income, What are we doing to address the affordable housing crisis that we all are experiencing right now? And what are we doing to create more jobs, create more entrepreneurs, and to make certain that our children not only get a good English and arithmetic math lesson, but they also understand financial literacy? This is how we change lives, and this is the true ministry of the work of today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's incredible. And so exactly why we're here. I appreciate that so much. Now it's my great honor to introduce you to a committed leader in the cause for building economic and financial stability in our nation's most underserved communities. LISC's own President and CEO, Michael Pugh, who has agreed to join us today despite a very packed schedule of meetings, speaking engagements, and commitments that will force him to leave us more quickly than I know he was hoping to. But he's here today, so we're gonna make him talk. Come on up.
Good morning. All right, let's try it just one more time. We've got the coffee in us, so I know we can bring the energy. Good morning. Let me start off by just saying, how honored I am to be here and be a part of this incredible convening. One of the key things that I heard from the video is that this is an opportunity to ignite action. And so it's my hope that through these sessions that we have, the convening, we will truly ignite further action and be able to continue to do this incredible work that is needed across our country. I will just share with you that, we have Mr. Daniel Maxwell that leads our communications team here, and he often helps me with talking points, and I often am criticized for not following any of the talking points. So I just kind of go off. And what happens is that I try to really follow the energy that's in the room and speak to the importance of what I'm hearing, what I'm learning. I've learned so much already from just a few minutes of being here, starting off this morning with being able to interact with some of the team and then having some follow-up as part of a funder breakfast, and now here in this big room. And I've already thought about how to rewrite the talking points that he's given me, but I'm gonna behave today, and I'm gonna try to stick to time because Nadia did mention that we're already off schedule. So before I go any further, let me just first say that we need to really give Nadia, Emily, and the Rural LISC Advisory Council a big round of applause. I'm going to ask you to engage with me a bit further. The theme for this year's conference is partnership. And so I can't think of a better way to frame what we do and why it matters. And so as we think about partnership, tell me a little bit from the audience here, what does partnership mean to you? Let's hear from this side. Anyone that would like to just shout out your meaning, one word for partnership? Please. Local initiatives, all right, we love that one. Okay, what about from the, thank you. What about from the middle of the room? Trust, thank you, thank you. And we're gonna say over here in this area before we go to the far side, what about this group? Intention, love that. Okay, and as we go over to the far side here. Fantastic, thank you so much. So I agree with everything that you said, and when you look at and listen to all of the key points, I think trust wraps all of these really important messages because it is the most important currency that we have. It is the bond of our word. It is the evidence of our actions. It is the thing that brings us together. So in part, what you'll hear me talk just a little bit about today is trust. You'll hear me talk about partnership, quality, and resilience will be some of the key things. I would tell you that for us, one of the key things that we understand is that trust can't happen without the ability to listen. And I'm reminded of a time, and one of which I have not really shared in a broader audience, but I'm reminded of the importance of listening as I reflect back to my childhood and growing up with a parent that had a speech impediment. My mother had a speech impediment that oftentimes challenged her self-confidence, but it also made it very difficult for others to understand what she was saying. And so in many cases, because I grew up with her and I understood what she was saying, it sounded perfectly normal to me. I became the voice and the advocate in order to translate. But I also saw how it challenged her in many cases to find clarity in her words and directness so that she could be understood. And I think when we talk about trust, we really can't talk about that. When we talk about partnership, we can't talk about that without understanding the power and the importance of listening. And part of what we do here at LISC is truly become strong listeners to understand what our partners need, what our community needs are, in order to then be responders to them. And being that advocate in order to help those that haven't found their voice just yet is a very, very important thing. The evidence of that I would offer to you is, when we talk about rural economies and the quality of life, there are 300 rural leaders and advocates, practitioners in the room that are testimony to the creativity and the innovation across our country. It is a testimony to you all listening and being an advocate for those that haven't found their voice yet. And I ask you to just join me in giving yourselves a big round of applause. I want to talk to you a little bit about quality, which is another important point that you heard me mention. So we talked about the power of trust and listening. You've heard me touch on partnership, but quality matters as well. And oftentimes when we discuss housing or we think about other critical things, we understand the importance of that. Housing without quality services, frankly, creates another desert in many cases. You can have a great place to live, but if you don't have programs and services that ultimately allows the community to thrive, then we truly haven't solved the issue. And so our focus and commitment on quality remains an important part of the work that we do. And you'll hear and see more about some of that work through our healthy foods, our childcare, our safety and justice, and our education programs. Some of you may know that I've been here for a little over a year now, and as I've continued to learn so much about all of the work that we've done, it completely overwhelms me in some cases because I think, my God, how will I ever learn all of these programs at a level of depth and detail that I aspire to have? But the key for sure is that when you've got colleagues like Nadia in the room that are truly subject matter experts, and you have great leaders that are here, we can continue to work together. We can get things done. And I don't have to learn it and digest it all the same way, but I certainly must show up and make sure that we're here and a part of it. I'm proud to say that as we approach the 30th year for Rural LISC, we also have more than 29 years of investment that's been made with, listen to this, over $2.8 billion invested in rural America. Yeah. I'm going to highlight some other things because this is about the team and it's about the work, it's about the partnerships, it's about the trust that you've heard, and it's about listening. We've leveraged this investment to attract an additional $5.6 billion from public and private sources. With all of you, we've been able to support over 55,000 affordable homes and apartments and nearly 9 million square feet of commercial and community space. Now, we know this is important because, again, with affordable housing, and then when we start to build those other critical services that are wraparound, we help create quality and healthy communities. I am also excited to be able to say that we've helped to support more than 2,900 small businesses. We understand the power and the importance of small businesses. They are the backbone of America in terms of how they drive our economic engine. We've helped to support the creation of more than 24,000 jobs, and we've helped to also support more than 20 child care centers. LISC has significantly grown our safety and justice in rural communities as well. And this includes a $5 million investment from the Department of Justice to provide training and technical assistance and grants that help our rural law enforcement agencies. We've also invested in other aspects of our safety and justice with 20 rural communities that have partnerships with more than 2.6 million in grants. And those grants are primarily being planned for 2025. And I'm close to wrapping up in terms of highlighting all these things, but I also will just tell you that Rural LISC has secured funding for the first time from supporters as well as expanded from longtime financial partners, for example, MasterCard, Strive USA, and others that are supporting the business development organizations to help launch and grow small businesses in rural communities. Please give them a round of applause. We can't forget about General Motors and our financial opportunity centers. Many of you may know that we have over 120 financial opportunity centers across the country. These FOCs are so important to us because they become, in many places, the starting point for people in the communities that we serve to gain financial information, to gain technical assistance, and ultimately to be able to transfer aspirations to reality. And so while there's a number of other things that I would just share because of these wonderful talking points that I have, I want to be mindful of time and highlight again, perhaps one of the most critical things, which is partnerships can't happen without all of you here in the room. We understand the power of when more than one comes together, what can actually be done. And so you heard me say earlier just a few key things. I talked about the importance of trust and listening being the conduit. You heard me talk about partnerships. You heard me talk about quality. I want to leave you with resiliency as perhaps the last one. The work that you do matters so much, and we have to continue our path on this work. It is my hope that one day we will never have to have a convening about issues like this because we will have solved them all. I'm reminded of a time when I talk about resiliency was somewhat over 12 years ago, transferring from having spent about 20 years in my career in financial services, leading large divisions of big banks. And it was an incredible time because as someone that was a family transplanted, relocated from Thomasville, Alabama to Detroit, Michigan, my family sought to find a start for themselves and the ability to change their socioeconomic condition. Education was a critical aspect that was constantly told to me to focus on. And so as I started to embark on my career and was able to achieve some pretty significant roles, I started to then question after about 20 years in, what am I doing and why does it matter beyond having this ability to earn a decent living and acquire things? What else? What is my purpose? And so I remember this time sitting in the living room with my mother and while doing one of those visits that, I traveled to spend some time with her. And what I would say is that I have a younger sister that often would kind of roll her eyes a little bit when I came to town, because she always say, well, people kind of rolled out the red carpet for you, and I'm here doing the work all the time with her parent. And it was just, as the only son, my mother did love up on me a bit when I was there. And that was okay. I enjoyed it. But I remember this one specific time when we talk about resilience, that I was sitting there in her living room and I had my laptop, and she said, "What's wrong? You look like you have such weight on you." And I said to her, "I'm constantly working and I'm in rooms where I don't necessarily see people that look like me, have any of my experiences, background. I'm not sure that I fit at times. And I'm struggling with finding the purpose of what I'm doing, because the desire is to do something where it's actually really making a difference." I was leading a division for an organization where my line of business contributed more than $100 million in revenue for the company, but we never talked about the communities and the people and the work. And so she said to me, "Do you believe in what you're doing?" My answer was yes. She said, "Is there more that you would like to do? And is there a way that you'd like to do it differently?" Answer was yes. And she then responded, and you'll remember this is the lady that I share with you, often struggled to find her voice. And so her words mattered so much. She said, "If something matters, never give up." At that moment, I looked up at her and I closed my laptop, and she gently looked back at me again and she said, "If something matters, never give up." It has become the guiding light for everything that I do now. And it was shortly thereafter that I then sought to become part of the community development financial institution sector. And having spent the past 12 years in this space, what I can tell you firsthand is that the work that you all do matters, resiliency matters, and never give up. Thank you for being here today. And so now we're going to ask Dr. Ruth Jones-Nichols to come up.
Once you give me the mic, I guess I don't give it back. Thank you so much for that, Michael. I appreciate all those words and the sentiment. It is truly felt here in this room how important it is not to give up and be committed to this work. Ironically, Michael and I talked this morning, and I had written out this very detailed run of show, and I even had like a little speech for him on how he would introduce our next speaker, but I'll just read it. So Dr. Jones-Nichols is the Executive Vice President of Local and National Programs for LISC. She's going to lead the first of 3 fireside chats that we're going to have today. And so I'd love for you to join me. And I'll just share an intro while you're coming up. Since joining LISC 5 months ago, Ruth has traveled across the country, meeting and conversing with the leaders of LISC's 36 urban offices, getting to know and experience in person the work that LISC supports locally. Dr. Jones-Nichols brings decades of community leadership to this position, having most recently served as senior advisor to the Secretary of HUD. Those years of experience include at least 1 stint in rural America, advocating for healthy communities and diverse ways to expand quality housing. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ruth.
Thank you, Nadia, for that kind introduction, and thank you, Michael, for setting the tone for this opening session. I love that you shared, Michael, the thing that was imparted to you by your mother, one important thing: if something matters, never give up.
I see that in how you show up every day and the commitment you have to LISC Vision. You push us constantly to make sure we are working with residents and partners to forge resilient and inclusive communities of opportunity all across America. So thank you for your leadership and thank you for the opportunity to serve with you. Please give Michael another round of applause. Nadia, I had no idea this would be your first seminar as a leader of Rural LISC, but I have to say you are doing such an incredible job, not just here, but in the work that's happening across the country. If you believe that with me, please show your appreciation for Nadia again. Sometimes we just need that extra encouragement, and we have such a great rural team. We also have a phenomenal national team, and many of our leaders, both at the national and local level, are here in the room today. I've had a chance to meet so many of them, but if for some reason you don't have a chance to meet them, I like to invite them to just stand up and wave their hands. Yes, stand up and wave your hand so that we can appreciate you too. As Nadia said, I have been in my position now for just 5 months. I joined the organization on July 8th with 2 other senior leaders at LISC, Daniel Maxwell, who was mentioned earlier as our Senior VP for Marketing and Communications, and Deanna Hamilton, who is our new Senior Vice President for Development. It has been remarkable in the past 5 months to travel across the country, to be in community with our community partners, learning about who we are, what we do, and why our work matters. Those were the 3 questions Michael Pugh introduced to us on day 1. And he said, it's so important that we lean in this moment to understand who we are, what we do, and why our work matters. That's one of the reasons why I am excited and honored to kick off this next part of our agenda, which is a series of 3 20-minute fireside chats. Now, you know, when we all start to talk about the work we're doing, 20 minutes is not enough time, but we are going to do our very best. I will say that I am extremely fortunate because as I've been traveling and meeting people, I met a woman about 2 or 3 months ago in Arizona. I was there for our national convening focused on the financial opportunity centers, and this particular individual came up to me and she said, I want to tell you my name. Don't you ever forget it. I work in a rural community. And she said, what's my name? And I said, Juanita Wood. I was kind of afraid to forget it. And so you can imagine my surprise when I learned that as part of this fireside chat, I would have the opportunity to invite Juanita Wood to the stage. So as she's joining me on the stage and we all have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about Juanita, let me just share a bit about her in a brief introduction. Juanita Woods is a native of Monroe, Louisiana, and a very active member of her church and community, including serving as the chairman of the Monroe City Council. As Deputy Director and Director of Programs and Participant Services of the NOVA program, she manages and provides oversight for all programs and helps guide NOVA's expansion in the Delta region. Please join me in welcoming Juanita to the stage for our first fireside chat to talk about how we are maximizing the partnership with LISC. I love when we have a fireside chat and these nice chairs are here. It's cozy.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
It is. It's great to see you. And I can't believe you remembered my name.
Yes, yes. I don't think you were going to let me forget. I
know.
feel like you asked me 2 times, what's my name? What's my name?
And you remember.
I remembered as soon as we started talking
Oh
about
my
this
goodness,
fireside
this is
chat.
just amazing. I'm so excited to be here. When they told me that I would be interviewing with you, I thought, oh my goodness, she is such an amazing person. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I do appreciate you remembering my name.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I also remember that you said one day I want to share with you more about the work we are doing in the Delta region. And I thought initially that you would share with me in an upcoming visit. And so it's great that we can have this brief moment to talk here as part of the fireside chat. So why don't we just start with you telling the room a little bit more about who you are, what your organization does, and how you work with LISC.
Okay, great. So thank you. I would like to once again say thank you so much for this opportunity, because it's always a great thing to be able to tell your story. And I'm not going to talk about myself in third person. I typically do, because I think she's such an amazing person. But when I really get excited, I go and I start talking about Juanita Woods. They said, "Well, I thought you were Juanita Woods." I said, "But I am." But anyway, Juanita Woods is a very persistent person. She believes in going in, and she believes in getting what she wants, and she's all about helping her people. Helping people who lacks the voice to do the things that they need to do, and sometimes they don't even know that they need to do it. And my career started back in the early days of being an advocate for people. And so that has carried me through all of my life. And I came back, I lived in Atlanta for about 15 years, and I moved back to Monroe because in Atlanta I was a small fish in a big pond. So I came back to Monroe, where I got to be a big fish in a little pond, and my voice was heard. Um, like you said, I'm chairman of the Monroe City Council. I'm in my 3rd term. And so I am term limited. So, I'm coming out, but, I've got some other plans. I'm not going to tell y'all, because y'all might know somebody that you might go back and say that she said she was running for mayor. But I didn't tell you that. I didn't tell you that. Because I'm doing good work with Nova. So, and I would have to leave Nova. But anyway, the 2 of them, Nova and the city council, works so harmoniously together, because the same persons and people that live in my district are the same people that are underserved and need the services of Nova. So Nova is a job intermediary that connects and identifies the business needs of businesses. And then we work with our community colleges and other educational institutions, and we put all of those together to work with individuals in our community that's got a high school diploma, a GED, or the HiSET. And we say that only because the employers that we deal with are saying we need those. But when we run into individuals who don't have that, well then, we take them, we don't leave them, we kind of just, refer them to other places and kind of monitor so that we can keep our hands on them, because everybody needs someone to help them.
Absolutely. And it's so great to hear about how your work has come full circle, because you talked about starting out as an advocate and you talked about serving people, but it sounds like through the work you do at Nova, you're serving people and you're serving partners in order to have transformative impact in communities. So we're really excited about the work you're doing and look forward to hearing more. How does your work intersect with LISC, and what are you most looking forward to in 2025?
Now, LISC is such an amazing organization. We've had so many great opportunities. LISC was one of those ones when we became involved with them. We didn't really know what we needed, but there was a young man that worked for LISC, and we met him in Tallulah at one of our little convenings. His name was Andy Saavedras. And Andy told us, yeah, Andy believed in the work that we were doing because the majority of the work that we do is in the Delta region. And in the Delta region, that is absolutely the poorest region, absolutely in the country. 3 of the parishes that we serve, and incidentally, in Louisiana, we have parishes in Steph counties. So 3 of the parishes that we serve along that Mississippi River are the absolute poorest, and they just needed someone to hear them. Andy introduced. Now we had a big heart at Nova, but we had no money. All right, so that's the thing. We had no money, so LISC came in, and LISC started to believing us. We started to show ourselves worthy of the monies that they were giving, and then they believed more, gave more, and we made a difference. Now, what we focus primarily on, because we visit with employers to understand what their needs are demand occupations. That would be healthcare, that would be customer service, the construction trades. So we wanted to work with people to make sure that they could get into jobs once we gave them the training that they needed. And so this, in addition to, they came in with the workforce piece of it. And then so, we had people that were making monies. Employers were saying it was not enough money to last the month. Can y'all do something? So LISC came up with the FOC. So once we got people into jobs, then we were able to get them into teaching them how to manage their money. That was one of the best things in the world that could happen to us, because no matter how much money you make, if you don't manage, it's still a moot point. And so, so that came about. But the thing that, again, with LISC, there were so many other opportunities. I didn't tell you that I was a Rubinger Fellow.
Oh.
Yeah, so, that was one of those, another opportunity that came along with LISC. And we were able to use those dollars from the Rubinger Fellow grant to touch a population of people that we wouldn't have normally have touched. We were able to touch at-risk youth because NOVA is 18 and above. The at-risk youth, we took them from 16 to 21. Those were ones that were in alternative schools that the system thought that they were going to fail. So my proposal that I did with LISC on that was to take these students, put them in an apprenticeship program, pair them with employers. And the way we got the employers involved, it's like, if you will give them the experience, we'll pay their salaries. So that was just amazing. So we've used LISC for a lot of reasons.
I love that so much. And it's not lost on me that you talked about how LISC gave money, right? She said that a few times. But you also talked about how LISC helped to build the capacity of your organization by providing training, technical assistance, and programmatic solutions that were grounded in evidence-based data. And so, we're thankful for the partnership that we've had with NOVA and with you over the years. We're thankful for the impact you've had in communities. Again, when you think about 2025 and the thing for which you feel most excited, what's that one thing,
The one thing that we're most excited, and we're so excited because of the impact that we've gotten, from LISC. We did a public-private partnership with an organization that had, we had this one company. They were having trouble finding qualified employees. And so we listened, we talked to the community college, and they put together a curriculum based around that particular need, taught it, and they were able to hire all the students that came out of that partnership. So we called on LISC a lot of times for a lot of technical support and just kind of, better understanding, how do we need to proceed with various projects that we're working on. So the technical support is there, the financial support is there, and it's causing a major impact in our communities.
I always like to ask this question because I think it's important for us to listen, as our leader said earlier. But what are some of the other ways that LISC can help? You've already talked about how the partnership has been impactful, again, from a training and technical assistance standpoint, from the standpoint of providing access to capital and critical resources. But what are some of the other ways you believe we can help or should help in order to move the needle on community impact in communities across the nation, but especially in the Delta region?
Well, one of the things I think that really is helping is having these networking meetings like this and having the opportunity to understand what other organizations are doing in their communities and how they're proceeding and what, are the best practices. And I think that's what LISC does. It gives us the opportunity to interact and get best practices from other organizations, and things that, you don't have to go back and try and recreate the wheel. You just take, I call it borrowing shamelessly, So those, and, I like it that there's always someone that you can call. Emily has been such a jewel to us with the FOC. She has, and then Juliana. See, I have to call out my officers because these are the ones when we're in need and when new ideas are coming down the pipelines that you would like to see, I guess, implemented in communities, because y'all have all of the expertise and then y'all pass it down to us so that we can, work on getting it implemented in our communities. Because it's so often that, just like the one that's going on now with the business organizations, we work in a very rural community, especially when we get to Lake Providence, when we start looking at the level of poverty is around, the 50 percentile range. You have small businesses there that are doing good things, but they don't have the tools that they need to get to the next level. And that's one of the things that I do appreciate about LISC.
Thank you. I have received the warning sign that we just have a couple of minutes. And so I could sit here and talk to you forever, but they're 20-minute fireside chats. And so I want to open the floor for just one question for Juanita, if there is a question from the audience. Anyone have a question for Juanita? Okay. I think there's a question.
Hello.
Hi there.
Ceasar from Legacy Institute for Financial Empowerment. My question to Ms. Woods is, how do you get employers to take on the liability in your public-private partnerships?
Well, that has been, that was quite interesting. When employers are real serious about, feeling a need, and we went and we talked about what we were willing to bring to the table, the work that we were going to do, then they were willing, this company was willing to come up and step up to the plate because, the guy in this particular instance was one that had worked for this company. And so we actually paid the salary for him to go to the community college and teach the students. And so really and truly, the employer was really gaining most of the benefit from that. But, people became employed, so that was very good.
Excellent. Thank you for that question. And you will be around for the next day or so.
Oh, absolutely.
And so please join me in thanking Juanita Woods for the opportunity to speak with her. And if you have any questions, you can follow up.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And so we are going to transition now into our second fireside chat. And I am delighted to invite my colleague to the stage. Her name is Madeline Fraser Cook, and she is the Senior Vice President for Community Building and Resilient Solutions. Madeline is going to, okay, there she is. She is going to join me on the stage, but let me tell you just a little bit about Madeline before she gets here. She is an urban planner with a strong commitment to affordable housing and community-based economic development. A previous HUD fellow, Madeline is recognized as a leader in green development, focused on ensuring that sustainability is integrated into housing and economic development projects. She oversees LISC HUD TA portfolio, equitable green initiatives, AmeriCorps, national capacity building, and rural LISC. Madeline is going to be leading our next fireside chat. Madeline, thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. How is everybody? Well, I'm really excited to be here today. Switched microphones on me all of a sudden. I'm really excited to be here today and see all of you in the room. I see so many familiar faces for which I'm so grateful. And I see a lot of people that I haven't met yet. And in the spirit of partnership, I want to meet new people. I want to see what you're doing, hear about your opportunities, hear about your challenges. And so what I would encourage all of us to do today is, yes, convene with people that we know, get to say hello, talk about what's happened since the last time you've seen each other, but also look around the room and try to find someone you don't know. Try to get to know them. Come out of this next couple of days with some true connections that you didn't have before coming here. Because that's how we grow our network, that's how we grow in partnership, and that's how we leverage all of our collective expertise, experience, and desires to really make an impact in the communities that we work in. So with that, I want to introduce the next person that we're going to have our fireside chat. And you know, given that it's so cold out, it's nice to have a fireside chat. Although I'm not feeling the heat right now, but as soon as we get into the programming, I'm sure we'll get all excited and warmed up here. So I want to introduce Javier Zapata. Javier brings more than 20 years of experience in the field of community economic development to his role at Pathstone, which has been an invaluable partner to LISC over the years. Javier is a native of Puerto Rico, and he started his career with Pathstone guiding their housing work in Ponce, Puerto Rico. He's now the head of Pathstone's Enterprise Center, where he guides their small business and housing lending work. And he does that in both Puerto Rico and in New York. Besides his busy schedule at Pathstone, he contributes in many other ways to community and the advancement of the work for which he's so passionate about. He serves on various community and government boards, including the board of directors for the New York State Job Development Authority and NBT Bank's Social Impact Advisory Board, among others. So the other kind of through line here today, you'll notice, is that Javier is also a 2018 Rubinger Fellow. Much like Juanita mentioned as her Rubinger Fellow experience, Javier will share with us a little bit about his experiences through the program. So with that, I'd love to welcome Javier up to the stage here, and we'll begin our conversation. Welcome, Javier. Now we get to sit in the comfy chairs.
Oh.
Yeah?
These are good.
Yeah, they are good. So, first of all, buenos días, bienvenido.
Gracias.
Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. We are going to start by just giving you an opportunity, Javier, to share with us your experience, how you got here, a little bit about Pathstone, and the partnership with LISC over the years.
Sure, no, and thanks first and foremost for the opportunity to be here to tell our story, like Juanita mentioned. And again, a big congratulations to Nadia and the whole Rural LISC team for putting this together. This has been an exciting conference, and I'm sure we have a couple of more days, more activities, and meet new people too. So again, my name is Javier Zapata, and I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I've been in community economic development for around 20 years. Started off in college, the University Institute for Community Development. And then after that, I worked for Springfield, Massachusetts-based nonprofit called Partners for Community before I transitioned what has been my home for the last 13 years, Pathstone Corporation, leading their Pathstone Economic Development Center for both Puerto Rico and New York. So our organization, as you know, has a myriad of services, housing, workforce development, in which we have the workforce development director over here as well. I think Brenda Soto is in the audience, so if you have a chance to connect with her, she leads the workforce development function of our organization, and I lead the economic development, where we provide services to small businesses across both geographies, both the upstate New York, where we go from Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo, that whole corridor, including the counties within, and the whole 78 municipalities of Puerto Rico. And in terms of the services that we offer, we are a CDFI, so we offer mostly small business lending. We focus mostly on startups, which is some of the times, of course, commercial banking has a little bit of a tougher time dealing with those. And we focus on them, so that's our bread and butter, and also providing technical assistance through many training programs that we have, including a procurement center in Puerto Rico that we set up some years ago with funding from EDA and continues to provide services. And this was set up at a time where Hurricane Maria hit the island, and a lot of funding was flowing through the island, but not a lot of small businesses were bidding for those dollars to work on the island's recovery. So at that time, we set up this procurement center to help bring the capacity of the small businesses to a level where they could apply. And I'm glad to say that so far we have a lot of small businesses that have gotten contracts. I think the last numbers were up in the 40s through the federal government or prime contractors. And of course, we have different training sessions, including how to set up a business. Our most recent one, the Loan Readiness Training Series, which is one that we're really proud of because we listen a lot to the community. We do this every year and adapt our programs. And this was one that the community said that was needed because a lot of people were coming to us wanting to start a business, but they were not loan ready. Right? And they had to go to different referral sources to get loan ready. So we said, why don't we pull in those partners and we do a program specifically tailored so that when the client comes in, the small business comes in, they go from A to Z in one sitting, right? So they finish with a business plan, they finish with a loan package ready to bring it up to different organizations. So that has been a success as well. And in terms of our relationship with LISC, my God, where do I start? So there's been a lot there. And we're thankful for the support that LISC has given Pathstone. I think our organization was founded in 1969, and the CDFI, the Pathstone CDFI, was founded in 1998. And ever since, we've had a relationship throughout, but I think there was an inflection point in 2017 with Hurricane Maria, where that relationship continued to be strengthened. And I remember at that time, our crew at LISC came to us and said, we have this program where we can provide grants to the small businesses that you have in your portfolio. And we took that with open arms. A lot of our small businesses after Hurricane Maria, a lot of our portfolio clients were hurting. And some of them were at risk of losing their small businesses. So we had set up a program, I think at that time was called the Verizon Discovery Fund, the Verizon Recovery Fund. And we were able to give our clients grants from $15,000 to $20,000, which is a large amount, especially after the impact that Hurricane Maria had. From that time also, we did some placemaking activities with Play Ball Again program that LISC and Pathstone also did in Puerto Rico, where a lot of and this is mostly in rural communities, and we're talking about inland mountain rural communities where it's very hard to get resources. We identified baseball fields that the community used for Little League practice for the kids to play around. And a lot of those, not to say most all baseball fields in Puerto Rico, were severely impacted. So Rural LISC, in conjunction with many funders that we had, including the Bad Bunny Foundation, Mark Anthony Foundation, we revitalized a lot of those baseball fields. So now the community, the kids who were not going to school, because there was no school at that time either, could go to and play ball, and the community had a safe space to even bring resources and distribute them around the community. So it was a beautiful project as well. Like you mentioned, the Reaping Your community, we, in my case specifically, we did a study that was what did we learn from Hurricane Maria, right? And how as an island, even though we are usually prepared for hurricanes, we were not prepared for that large impact that Hurricane Maria had. So the study, which is available for anybody who wants access to it, the study goes into what our policies should be on the island, or what can be done better, and what resources could be pulled in together to do a better job next time, or be a little bit better prepared, right, resiliency-wise. And for example, our government had a tax for having a tax for warehouse storing. So if you had a tax for warehouse storing, then you have a lack of storage and a lack of resources, right? Because people are not going to store as much. So we needed to revert that and have storing food, storing resources as much as we can without it being taxed. So that's just one example of what came out of that study. And last but not least, all the way up until today, we have a relationship in which right now we are part of the network of the Amex Resiliency Fund. And we in turn use those resources to provide technical assistance to many more small businesses around the island, especially after COVID and everything that's been going on. And last but not least, we have the LISC has helped us. Rural LISC has helped us in an internal capacity as well. So we have 2 full-time volunteers in our organization, 1 stationed in Puerto Rico, 1 stationed in New York, through their AmeriCorps program, right? So this has been very beneficial to us, especially since we, as nonprofits, we're always looking for resources, especially staff resources, to be able to help with the day-to-day activities. So it's been a great relationship so far. Hopefully that covers a lot of it. I'm
That
sure I'm
is-
leaving a lot on the table, but we only have 20 minutes.
Right, right. So thank you for giving us that overview of the work that we're doing together over the years. You mentioned earlier about your work in starting in Springfield, Mass, and the CDC there, and then expanding to Pathstone through New York and now in Puerto Rico. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, how the work is the same, how it's different when you're working in communities, rural communities in New York versus Puerto Rico? You know, a lot of the work that we do in Puerto Rico has a slightly different bent to it. So can you talk a little bit about how you approach the differences in your work at Pathstone between the 2 geographies?
And great question, because again, our organization, our parent company, which is led by our CEO and president, Alex Castro, is in 9 states and Puerto Rico. So we do manage a lot of diverse communities. The division I lead is in New York and Puerto Rico. And like you mentioned, there are different scenarios, different circumstances, especially in the rural areas. I think the main point on how we approach that on our team is listening, right? So we listen a lot to what the community needs are, and then we try to put the resources together. And we have to be adaptable to those needs, because as we've seen from 2017 all the way up to now, there have been so many changes. We had Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, we had the earthquakes, then we had COVID. What's going to be next year as well, right? So there's a lot of adaptability that goes to it. So like I mentioned, for example, with our training programs, every year we revise what is it that's needed and what is it that we can phase out. So whatever is needed at the moment, then we create and pull in resources together to make sure that we're quick and adaptable to the needs of the communities. In Puerto Rico, like you mentioned, the needs are a little bit different because also of the geography, right? So a lot of the rural communities in Puerto Rico, but if you think of Puerto Rico, you mostly think about San Juan, which is most of the population is concentrated, and where a lot of people vacation, etc. But then you have the rest of the island, which is mostly rural. About 90% of it is rural. So and the geography, it's a mountainous island, so it's a little bit harder for roads, etc., to come in and bring in resources. So there's a bit of a different scenario there, but at the end of the day, it's also about listening, being present, and making sure that the work that we're doing serves the purpose of what the community needs are.
And you talked a little bit about, your work post Maria, and I was wondering if you could touch a little bit on disaster recovery and how that plays out in rural communities as we're seeing more and more disasters hitting some of the most vulnerable communities. How do you approach that kind of work, that recovery, that resilience?
Well, thankfully, with the support of our partners, right? It takes a village, right? So, as many partners as we can bring to the table, and as many partners as we're working with towards the same common goals, the better the results are. Unfortunately, in Puerto Rico, there's a circumstance that the local government holds the majority of the funding that goes for disaster recovery. We ourselves are part of a CDBG program in Puerto Rico, which has been very successful, in which we are vetting and underwriting a lot of the small businesses that are coming to the government to receive aid, right? So we are part of that process. However, there's the funding that's coming to the island has been dripping little by little. So, and unfortunately, most of it, we're talking about the billions of dollars, come from the federal government. However, as much, again, as rural LISC support and other partners that we have, that's where we try to strive for and push that extra mile to go to the rural communities and do the work that we need to do. Because if we, and thinking now in 2025, there's a lot of uncertainty about 2025, right? And that's something that we need to prepare as an ecosystem, as an industry, and be resilient as well. I think it was mentioned the word resiliency and trust. I think 2025 is going to be a year where we need to redouble our efforts, right? Especially in rural communities, redouble our efforts in advocacy, redouble our efforts in outreach, and listening to what the needs are, because a lot of the rural communities are going to take the brunt of maybe what we think may be coming. So it's really difficult work, but again, it takes a village. Bringing in partners and bringing in resources is the best that we can do right now.
As you look back at 2024 and the work that you've been doing, what is it that you're most proud of?
Well, I guess putting that into context, I think we have to go back to COVID, right? So as many organizations around here and around the nation, we were severely impacted by that as well, right? So a lot of our small businesses stopped their businesses for a while because of COVID, and they were not able to repay back their loans, or they were not able to sell their products and services. So in turn, a lot of the nonprofits took the brunt of it financially as well. So we took that time to look inward and say, okay, what is it that we need to be resilient ourselves, right? So it's kind of like the old adage, right? Put the mask on first before you put it elsewhere. So we looked inward, and then we tried to say, okay, what are the things that we need to make sure that we're set up to continue helping, even though it might impact us. So we've been working, striving towards that, including doing technology upgrades, including doing policy upgrades throughout our organization. And I'm glad to say that in 2024 fiscal year, we had our best lending year the organization has ever had. So we're a fairly small city of five, so we're not talking billions. We're talking about any given year, we used to do $2 million in lending. Right now, last year, we did close to $3 million in just 1 year. So we did $2.8 million, and that was as high as we've ever done as an organization. So we're pretty proud about that. We're pretty proud about our team. I'll do a quick plugging. We need more resources to meet the demands for this year. So if there's any funder out there that I haven't reached out to yet and would like to explore that conversation, we need more resources to be able to continue increasing our lending. So that's where we are right now. Our team is very proud of that. We have an amazing team at Pathstone. I think Pathstone is an organization, like you mentioned, we have a lot of history together, and hopefully we'll continue doing that throughout.
Well, congratulations on
Thank you.
That organizational development. It really speaks to the power of capacity building around organizational development and sustainability of the organization as a foundation for more work. So congratulations on getting that work done. And
Thank you. I think it goes back to resiliency and as an organization.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're on a good path forward. So, looking back is really important to reflect on successes and maybe how it gives you wind in your sails to go forward. So in that spirit for 2025, what are you looking forward to? What really excites you about the path that you're seeing for 2025, and how do you anticipate continuing to work not only with LISC but with others in the ecosystem, other CDFIs, other community developers, and federal agencies as partners?
So continue increasing those relationships, right? So for example, we created a procurement center in Puerto Rico, and we did this with EDA funding. So now we're trying to do the same in upstate New York, trying to bring those services and resources on things that we know how to do well, which are our core business, and then try to replicate it elsewhere and adapt it, of course, to the different scenarios that are there. And I think 2025, not to be pessimistic, but I think it's going to be a year, there's a little bit of uncertainty in the air in terms of outside resources, in terms of the federal government, right? Not to get too many to politics, but I think that's something that we need to have on our radar, and I think we need to be ready for that, for those battles as they come forward as well. In terms of pulling together the resources, I think, again, just continuing the relationship with Rural LISC, meeting new partners around. We have a new strategic plan for the next 5 years. So that also came out of 2024. And we have some goals for the next 5 years that we want to meet. To, again, making sure that we're meeting the demands of our communities, our rural communities. We have a goal for the next 5 years to grow as an organization. Right now, we're a small size organization. We have a $6 million portfolio, and in the next 5 years, we want to get to around 20. So that puts us in the medium-sized category. So we have a lot of different things going on, and hopefully we can continue doing it. But again, it takes a village, it takes partners, it takes resources, and hopefully Rural LISC and other partners are there as well.
Great. And we likewise look forward to the continued partnership. Our partnership with Pathstone has been invaluable to us as well. We work together on some HUD technical assistance programming where we bring you in as technical experts in Puerto Rico. So we really value that partnership and that kind of two-way conversation between our organizations. So really appreciate it.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Director of Housing in Puerto Rico, a great partner and ally, Maria Rodriguez, who has been working also with Rural LISC on those initiatives.
Right. Well, I know I'm getting the high sign here, but just wanted to give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask any questions before we move on to the next fireside chat. Any questions out there? Sure.
I think they were thinking if we remembered our names. So we
right.
did. So.
Yeah, Javier. Okay, got it.
So Javier, one of the questions I had, and Joe, this will sound familiar for our conversation, what advice do you have for rural peers in the room around innovative approaches to community and economic development?
I think, and this is something that Pathstone has been a philosophy over the years, is being entrepreneurial, right? As an organization, right? As we were talking about being resilient, also being entrepreneurial. And the likes of Stuart Mitchell, for example, and Lee Bollock, who's here with us today, they were entrepreneurial in their time to be able to grow the organization to where it is. Now, that means that sometimes you're going to fail. That means that sometimes you're going to hit and miss. But it doesn't mean that you should stop. It means that you have to figure out more ways to continue helping. As it relates to this point in time, we as an organization right now are tinkering a little bit with AI, both in terms of technical assistance and dipping our toes into underwriting as well, seeing how would that work out. But again, that takes also resources. It may be a hit and miss, but being entrepreneurial in nature about the kind of work that we're doing, I think it's what's needed right now. Especially, again, there's always not we never have the resources that we think we have, and we always need a little bit more, and being resourceful, being entrepreneurial, and at the end of the day, being networking and partnering with other organizations, right? So for example, the AI, a little bit of work of AI that we're doing, we're partnering with another organization that's an expert on that, right? So how can they teach us a little bit on that as well? So there's a lot going on, but again, being entrepreneurial and a resource mindset.
Right. Well, Thank you so much for all the work
Thank
that
you.
you do. And, again, reiterating the theme of today, which is if something matters, never give up. So with that, please help me say thank you so much to Javier and to Pathstone and all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to introduce Nadia Villagrán, because none of you know her. So Nadia, the next fireside chat.
Thank you so much. Let's give them one more round of applause to Madeline and Javier and Dr. Jones, Nichols, and Juanita. Now I get to round out the final fireside chat, and I would like to welcome Joseph Ceasar, founder and executive director of Legacy Institute for Financial Empowerment, lovingly known as LIFE, based in Lufkin in Deep East, Texas. As you make your way onto the stage, I'm just going to share a little about you. Joe has more than 20 years of experience as a financial advisor and a financial coach, and serves as the pulpit minister of Lubbock Street Church of Christ. He holds a BS degree in political science from the United States Military Academy at West Point and an MBA from the University of Houston's Bauer College of Business. And I just learned that he is one of 3 that we featured today, LISC Rubinger Community Fellows, which we did not plan, but it worked out quite well. I don't have a mic yet.
Good.
Oh, this is great. These are nice chairs.
They are.
Hi, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us today in this fireside chat. And I think you guys saw the format, very similar questions. So I just want to start by giving the opportunity for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, and then with the theme, how do you work with LISC?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a world of unlimited budgets. So I worked for the United States Army as a Patriot missile officer out of Fort Bliss, Texas. Where was that? Where did that come from? There you go. All right. So we had virtually an unlimited budget. And then I started a career as an investment manager. I call myself the chief janitorial officer. I got in at an entry level position at CAS Investments in Houston, Texas, where I started out in the trading room. And then in 3 short years, I became the COO of the company. I also managed 2 hedge funds and managed all the traditional investments for the organization. So my namesake, Joseph, in the Bible, it truly was a Joseph story, where I became second in command of an organization that is now a multi-billion-dollar organization that is affiliated with Tony Robbins. So they're doing very well. So just like Michael, I think there was a point where I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more. The people that I grew up with in my community, which I did not come from money. I was financially illiterate, generationally financially illiterate. I grew up in a household where my parents never owned their home, at least while I was in the household. As soon as I left, they bought a house, which was interesting. But I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about investments. Ownership was something that we didn't discuss. My dad should have had his own auto mechanic shop, but he didn't. So that's the environment that I grew up in. There was a movie in 1983 or so. I was about 4 or 5 years old. You probably remember it. But it was about a homeless guy, or at least he portrayed himself to be homeless, who ended up becoming a commodities trader. That movie was called Trading Places. And for me, that planted a seed of what I could do. And long story short, I ended up realizing that dream, ended up going to the New York Stock Exchange. It wasn't commodities, but it was in the stock market. But I knew as an investment advisor, I wanted to do more. I didn't see people that looked like me walking into our company. As a matter of fact, to invest with us, you had to have a minimum of 300,000 liquid assets. So I couldn't go to Acres Home in Houston, Texas, and get my friends and family to invest with the firm that I was working for. So my wife and I started this organization, Legacy Institute. At that point, it was for financial education. And I realized how difficult it was asking for money to have a good work that was underfunded. I got some help from some coworkers who wrote checks to help us get started. But it began the world of of poverty, right? Even as an organization where, you know, coming from an environment where everything is given to you, to have to scratch and claw for every dollar that we get, especially in moving it from Houston to Lufkin, Texas, where there's probably 200 nonprofit organizations all looking to get the same dollar. But that leads me into what we're doing now. So our organization, our mission is twofold. We have a financial opportunity center, which Katrin, I think Katrin is in the room. She introduced us to. And then Julia Malinowski, who now works for US Bank, she worked with us. And then we were handed to Emily Avery, who is the most outstanding person in my life next to my wife. And then we have Julian Dunn and, of course, yourself, who we've developed a relationship. But that financial stability work in Lufkin, Texas, where jobs are scarce, education resources are scarce, it was difficult for us to reach our goal of financial stability for families. So we started what now has become LifeWorks, which is a registered apprenticeship program where we're building houses. Mr. Spikes is in the room. Some of you may have seen him in some of the articles put out with LISC. But we've got Lauren Spikes, who heads up our Life Build program. So we're training apprentices from the community how to build houses. And these houses are affordable houses. So we're about to complete our very first project here shortly. We have Life Tech. Michael Martinez is in the room, which is doing a wonderful job. Some of you in the Rural Digital Equity Network with Krista Vinson, you may have received computers from Michael. So if you have any complaints, he is right over there. And my wife, Elena, is with me as well. And we've got Tevya, Financial Opportunity Center Director. But to combine a workforce development platform with a financial stability platform helps us increase the likelihood that we'll have positive outcomes. So that's what we're doing now.
That sounds amazing. I really appreciate that. I have several questions. I'll just start from the top, and we can work our way down.
No problem.
So you said a lot of incredible things about what you guys have brought into this organization. Can you tell me a little bit about, as you look back on the last year, what is one thing that stands out that you're really proud of?
Yes. So in the last year, we have developed some really significant partnerships. Georgia Pacific, who is a major employer in our community, they made an agreement with us that they were going to provide us all the lumber that they could from about 3 local sawmills. So that has allowed us to build houses without having to pay for most of the lumber, which is outstanding. And they haven't given us a limit on it. So it's like a credit card without a limit. And I'm going to take full advantage of that. But we have done an amazing job in selecting partners to work with to make that a reality. Also, I'm very proud of our board of directors who, after a strategic planning session, we were able to chip away at what we're really trying to accomplish and kind of get them behind it, get our employees, our team behind it. So now we have a very focused pathway on how we're going to move forward and achieve financial stability so we can keep doing this.
Well, it's interesting you talk about financial stability, and you also mentioned that you had to kind of learn the hard way, how hard it is to ask for funds, right? Can you tell me a little bit about how you convinced this lumber company, for example, to be so generous with their materials and other conversations you've had to get this working?
So ironically, my friend Michael Jackson over there, when asked what does partnership mean, he said, I have 2 words. Can I say that? And I was thinking the same thing. He just came up with 2 different words that I would have said. Mutually beneficial. A partnership must be mutually beneficial. So when we went to Georgia Pacific, we shared with them, not only do we want you to contribute, because at this point they have not written us a check. It's not hard dollars. They're willing to give us their product, which is equally as important. But what we shared with them is that we're training people in not just technical skills like NCCR certifications, but also soft skills, showing up to work on time. Mr. Spikes, he has become like a grandpa It was a rough start because he's old school, right? Old school guys, they show up to work an hour early. If you're not an hour early, you're late. So we have young kids from the community who grew up in poverty, who most of them, their fathers are not in their lives. They don't know work ethic. That old school mindset doesn't exist. So we're bringing them in, trying to teach them that's the way it's supposed to be. So we're telling Georgia Pacific, we want you to recruit our trainees, even though we're not training them in exactly what they're doing. They're coming out, they have an understanding about safety. They have an understanding about respect for the employer, for being timely, all those essential skills that we're talking about. And now they have recruited 2 of our people, and they are looking at more. So we're taking that relationship slowly, but it is a significant relationship. And just for frame of reference, the first person that we placed there was in prison for over 26 years. He was doing odd jobs, pressure washing, cutting grass. And now he's got a career. They started him out at $19.50 an hour, which for someone like that, it's a game changer. So that is, we're extremely proud of that. And that's what a partnership means for us.
So then, just to turn it forward, can you tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to in 2025?
2025, we want to sell our first home that we've built. We have a buyer already, but we want to expand that into more. We also want to have our first rental property where we can truly provide affordable housing. It is on our roadmap to become a CHODO, a community housing development organization. So yes, we want to become a CHODO, and actually we would like to become a CDFI as well for a lot of different reasons. But if we're able to get all of that done in 2025, it'll be a successful year.
Sounds like a busy year. So now, the question that we like to ask is, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you've done in partnership with LISC and Rural LISC and how that has impacted your evolution?
How much time do we have left?
About 10 minutes.
So our work with LISC, giving us a framework on how to communicate with our clients through the FOC has been phenomenal. We're able to track the things that are important to our clients. It's important to us, but it's more important to our clients. Net worth is not something that most people, at least in our community, are looking at, but that's something that we emphasize. It's a scoreboard for how well you're doing. Through assistance with LISC, we were able to partner and get a grant from Microsoft. It was the Microsoft Philanthropies grant. Emily Avery helped connect the dots on that, but that was a $300,000 3-year unrestricted funding grant. Unheard of. So it was a trust-based grant that completely changed our organization and allowed us to launch our IT apprenticeship program that we were able to train 50 apprentices in IT in a 18-month period, which got our local workforce development board recognition and things like that. Also, we're a business development organization. We received Lipton Heartland grant funding through that program, and we were able, in the middle of COVID-19, I believe we were awarded $10,000 grants to businesses in the community, which allowed us to grow that segment of what we were doing. LISC has helped us in connecting us with people like you who have got a ton of experience in housing, and because that is where we're moving into more affordable housing. So providing technical assistance and learning how to do all of that has been important. So I can go on and on about the financial component, but the technical assistance component is equally as important because it allows us to stand on our own 2 feet and allows us to go for the funding on ourselves, the funding that is what I call sticky funding, like state and federal funding. We received our first federal grant through the Department of Labor Growth Opportunities Grant, which was for our organization almost $700,000 over a 2.5-year period, which gave us financial stability for our organization, but it allowed us to do some really cool work for the justice-involved individuals in our community. So again, I can go on, but without that, we would not know how to run and manage a federal grant, which is going to be important for us I still consider us a startup. Yeah.
That's incredible. It sounds like you're doing a lot of a lot of things and are open to different things, which I think is really important in this work. Now, I asked this earlier, but what advice do you have for your rural peers in the room around innovative approaches to community and economic development?
Where do I begin there? Innovation it can be hard because when I worked for CAS Investments, the person who hired me in the company, his name is Casey Hodges. And Casey, he told me, he said, if you're going to be successful here, I don't want to hire a racehorse that just goes around a circle, all right? That's all they know how to do. But you put them on a square track, they don't really know what to do. We have to be able to critically think and think of solutions outside the box. If you just do what I tell you to do, then you add no value to me. I want you to add value. So that set a precedent for me. And also, I didn't have a mother who told me to keep going. My mom is in my life, but she had a different value set. But in my high school, they hung a sign in the gym that said, if it is to be, then it is up to me. So when you combine those two, what you have is a military concept that we use: adapt, improvise, and overcome. When things don't happen the way that you want them to happen, it doesn't mean that you quit. It means that you adapt, you move, you change, and you have to evolve, or else you will die. So in this situation, we have evolved, and I would encourage anybody who getting into this, or if you want advice from us, then I would say think outside the box. Think outside the box in as far as how you're going to attain sustainability. For us, we're looking to have a rental property portfolio that will allow us to operate without having to depend on grants. So innovation is extremely, extremely important. Networking opportunities like this to find out what other people are doing, that's important. And then also developing meaningful relationships with super funders in your local community. We've got one or two that really look out for us. So I would encourage you to do that as well.
That sounds great. So I do have the sign from Tiffany to wrap it up, but we do have some time for a question or two from the audience. I see one here.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious what your insights are when it comes to the development of trust with a marginalized population that's extremely challenged, as is recognized by the recidivism rates that are common.
Yes.
So yeah.
So the grant that we have focuses on the group 18 to 24 that are justice involved. So we have two issues going on. We have a generational issue of soft skills, and then we have to overcome the background and at least in Lufkin, I'll call it the street mentality. So one of the things that we did very strategically, and it was a godsend, literally. I got a phone call from a guy that I've been working with in another organization who told me of a guy who was about to be released from prison. So I went out and met him. He was in Henderson, Texas. So I drove like an hour to go see him, and come to find out he's got a master's degree in public policy. He's an African-American who was in prison from the south side of Chicago, who was involved in gangs up there. So I met with him. We planned for his release, got a judge who had a sober house right behind us. He wasn't on drugs, but because he had gone in for drugs, he qualified for the sober house. So his building literally was right behind us because he couldn't find housing because he was a felon. So anyway, long story short, he became our program director, our grant coordinator for the DOL grant. So I've got a guy who's from the streets, right? He was involved with gangs in the south side of Chicago, who's got a master's in public policy. So he's well-spoken, well-read, and he's an advocate for this type of work. He is running the program. So it is important that we find people. Those gems are out there. You've got to have somebody. I am not from the street. Although I am a African American, I am not from the street. I am not going to be able to relate in a way that they can relate to. He can. He uses words and terminology that I wouldn't use. Now, there's some things that we still have to monitor over that situation, but that is why that program, that's one of the reasons why that program has been successful for us. We are exceeding our goals for the year, but it has been a blessing to have him on our team.
My name is Lorna from Louisiana. Thank you for all the work you do. It's so very critical on the rural communities throughout Louisiana. I do have a question to you about ESEP, Emergency Investment Capital Plan. And the small banks in the little communities where the culture is important as is the lending, we're noticing that ESEP all across the country has put a great deal of money in a lot of the weaker rural small banks, who have a CDFI attached to them, not for profit attached to the bank. For example, in one of our communities, they thought they were going to get $6 million. They put $64 million into the CDFI. And so I began to do the research all through Louisiana in the rural areas. And actually what seems to be unfortunately happening is that that money is tied up in buying bonds so that they make a great deal of money on it, but they're supposed to be deploying it in some way to make the communities better. But it's also setting up, as I'm seeing, that it allows outside banks to come into the state and get a footprint, because if they buy that bank, they get the 64 million CDFI. Do you think that ESEP should be maybe connected with LISC in such a way that this money is deployed in the rural communities of America?
Well, that's the first I've heard of that program. I would say yes, any kind of funding that we can get to LISC so that LISC can help us out, we want that. I will just tell you I know we're probably over time, but I will share with you that at least in our community, because I don't know a lot about that particular program, but it's on my radar now, so thank you. I will tell you that at least in our community in rural deep East Texas, we've got a serious issue with the way things are run and what our priorities are from our elected officials. And that's something that we're actively trying to work on. I'll give you an example. Our ARPA funds, we would think that they would go to helping people, right? Recover. That's what that money was for. But our local elected officials made a decision to expand our county jail with our ARPA funds. I said, that's a great way to provide housing, affordable housing. But those kinds of things, and you know, Nadia, in our progression and our growth as an organization, we want to graduate from just being simple practitioners into being advocates. And we're almost at that stage. So yes, absolutely, if those funds are available to help organizations like LISC, which is a game changer for small rural organizations like us, absolutely. Where do we sign up for that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that it is an opportunity for us to look into this and say hello to Emily, who's waving at me, and find out more about it and see what we can do, because I completely agree LISC could play a part in that. But thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate your willingness to take on this interview and for sharing so much. And please, if you all have more questions for Joe, catch him in the audience. And I guess, thank you. We'll transition.
They were.
Oh, there's a so the one thing we haven't mentioned yet, and I apologize for that, is we actually have a virtual audience. So we had an incredible response to this event, and so we decided to include our virtual options for folks, and we have over 100 people participating, and there's a virtual question. Should we just take it since we've been ignoring them for the last 2 hours?
Thanks, Nadia. Thank you, Joseph. We do have a question from Ana Maria Citron from Casa Local in the chat.
My good friend from Puerto Rico.
She says, good to see you, Jay. She says, what has kept you going in tough and scary times? So a nice personal question.
Could you repeat that question?
What keeps you going in tough and scary times?
My relationship with God, without a doubt. There are times that you want to go into a corner and get in the fetal position and cry, especially as an executive director. I remember in the very beginning of our organization having to write personal checks to make payroll. So there are times where you believe, okay, why am I doing this? And those times are real, but you just keep going. And then Anna Maria, if you're listening, and I know Javier, thank you for being here for Puerto Rico. I actually was in Puerto Rico. I was trying to catch up with Anna Maria, but I'm going to change a word that we heard politically. It is a floating island of food. So we went into the mountains and we ate lechon, my wife and I, and it is amazing. So if you haven't been to Puerto Rico, it is beautiful. Old San Juan is gorgeous. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
I think, thank you so much, Joan, for everyone. Great questions. Now it's our opportunity to hear a little bit more about what's happening in DC and in the political arena. I'm looking for Mark Kudlowitz, who I'm being encouraging to join me on stage. Mark is the Senior Director of Federal Policy for LISC, and he's going to speak on the state of rural post-election and our role for rural advocacy.
Hi, thank you for having me here today. I'm Mark Kudlowitz, Senior Director of Federal Policy. But before I get started, do folks want to just take a stretch? I know this is a beautiful room, but it is windowless. It's 11 o'clock. Energy is a little low. If you guys want to just, do what you need to do for a second, that would be great. But in the spirit of, awesome, I'm loving this. I would definitely need to stretch at this point. We've been talking a lot this morning about partnership. And before I talk about what's going on in DC from a federal policy perspective, I really want to reiterate that all the work that the LISC policy team does is only effective if it's in partnership with our community-based partners. Your work with us on these critical federal housing and community development programs is key. And I've had the privilege in this position over the last almost 7 years at LISC to work with many of you on legislative opportunities and also on regulatory issues that are impacting your organizations. And I'm very grateful to be here in a room today with all of you to discuss what's going on. Okay, so I've got a half hour, but I definitely want to save time for questions, and we can ask questions throughout. We can keep this informal and have the most dialogue possible. And since we only have 30 minutes, I want to just acknowledge I'm joined today in the back by Jocelyn Gomez, who also helped me. There she is. And we'll be at the table in the exhibit hall and definitely want to know what your priorities are as organizations and how we can assist you. Part of our role as a national intermediary outside of aggregating funding and providing training and technical assistance is also to be a voice in DC for the federal programs that are important to sustaining your work. So we're going to talk a little bit about the election. I know folks have probably had enough of that, but there's actually still races being called. We're going to be talking about what we anticipate for key leadership positions on the Hill, LISC's highest tax and legislative priorities, and again, we hope those jive with yours. What's up with the appropriations for the current fiscal year? Talk a little bit about the Farm Bill and some important provisions that we're really pushing in Congress. And I think most importantly, advocacy opportunities. Again, how can we work together to advance this? So the LISC policy goals is that we want to serve as a government support for these federal programs. And every year we have a survey, including that goes to our rural LISC network, within the true community development spirit that it's very bottom up. We survey our partners and our 38 local offices to understand what's important, and then those become what the LISC policy team goes to bat for. So again, this is a great opportunity today for us to talk directly. Okay, so we're in the lame duck, right? We're in the period after the election, but before January 20th, when the new Congress will come into session, and we'll also have a new administration. So on the appropriated front, right now we have prorated funding through a continuing resolution through December 20th. Because there was a clean sweep by the Republicans in the House and the Senate, there's very little political appetite to pass a full year, fiscal year 25 spending bill during this lame duck period. The Republicans are going to want to see some cuts, and it's most likely that we're going to see another CR that's extended potentially into March, so almost halfway through the current federal fiscal year, so that they can have more of an imprint on the federal budget. What are other things that may pass? Well, not a lot is the answer. Because of that clean sweep, it diminishes appetite for certain lame duck bills to go through, including the Farm Bill. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We will see the annual National Defense Authorization Act. Unfortunately, we tried. We didn't get a lot of housing programs tied to it. You can, but we weren't successful. We'll see the Biden administration and the Senate devote a lot of floor time to judicial nominations. And I don't think there's going to be any chance that we're going to see tax legislation during the lame duck, but we are going to talk a lot about tax. Okay, so where are we at? The 119th Congress, we had a flip in the Senate, right? We now have 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats and independents. We had flips in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Montana, and West Virginia. So the Republicans are in control by a 3-seat margin. In the House, and this was the latest, I think Jocelyn even updated this yesterday because of the way votes are counted in California. Right now we're at 219 Republicans and 214 Democrats. So we have a there's still one race to be called, I believe, but a pretty similar composition to the current Congress, the 118th Congress. So we have very slim margins. And we saw during this session that in the House, it was difficult for Republican leadership often to marshal all their members together on key votes. So we'll see what happens with another slim majority. It's anticipated for the next Congress that the Speaker, Mike Johnson, will retain his position, with the majority leader being Steve Scalise. Hakeem Jeffries will probably retain his minority leadership position in the House for the Democrats. It's John Thune did win in the Senate to replace Mitch McConnell from South Dakota, and then Chuck Schumer will most certainly retain his leadership position for the Senate. So I'm going to just go over a couple key committees and then try to go a little through these. These are actually the current members of the House Ways and Means and Finance Committee. These are the tax committees in the House and Senate. So don't anticipate a lot of changes there, except for that Mike Crapo will now be running it in the Senate. In the Banking Committee, which is a key committee as well, because it has purview over federal housing programs. It also has purview over the Treasury Department for the CDFI fund and USDA for the rural housing programs. Tim Scott will now be the chair. This is a big change with Sherrod Brown losing in Ohio. Sherrod Brown was the longtime chair or ranking member of the Senate Banking Committee for the Democrats. So this is a very big change with Elizabeth Warren now will be the ranking member. It was going to go to Mark Warner from Virginia, but he wanted to retain his position on the Senate Intelligence Committee. On the House side, the Financial Services, the equivalent committee, Maxine Waters will retain her position as ranking member. Most certainly. It is unclear who will replace Patrick McHenry, who won't be in the next Congress. There is a lot of talk that French Hill, who's actually from Arkansas, will be the new chair. For the Ag Committee, Senator Stabenow from Michigan is retiring, will not be in the next session. So Amy Klobuchar will most likely be the ranking member. John Boozman, also senator from Arkansas, will retain his position as chair. And then David Scott and Glenn Thompson will also retain their positions most likely. Okay, this is a little too small, my bad. But what's going on? Okay, let's talk a little bit about appropriations, tax, and what's happening. So again, we expect a CR that will go through March. We are expecting there may be, we'll talk about this, some cuts, unfortunately, to federal housing and community development programs. We do anticipate the president releases a budget request to the Hill, typically in February or March. We will see a lot of what we saw during the last Trump administration, where we will see a lot of zeros for HUD programs, for USDA rural development programs, for the CDFI fund. But the important thing to always keep in mind is that the Congress has the constitutional power to appropriate money. The president does not. and it is just a budget request. So typically in the last Trump administration, Congress restored funding, and in fact, in many cases, increased funding for critical federal housing and community development programs. And that's what we're going to be working in partnership with you all to make sure happens. On the tax side, we're going to have a lot of movement. So once the new Congress comes into session on January 20th, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to start a budget resolution process to pass a tax bill in the first 100 days. They can do this through what's called budget reconciliation, which is an end around to the filibuster in the Senate for revenue-related items. This will take up a lot of time. It will be a lot of attention on it. And I want to talk more about what some of our key tax priorities that we would like to see ride with a tax bill. We also have the debt ceiling, which the Treasury Department will essentially hit sometime early next calendar year. The Treasury Department has certain abilities to extend the debt ceiling by deferring certain expenses, and we will see that happen early next year. With the Republicans in control of both houses of Congress, what we'll probably see happen here is a continuation of budget caps. Essentially, during the last year and this year, the Congress has artificially constrained their ability to spend money on non-defense domestic programs, and we will probably see more severe caps on discretionary spending, even though it's not really a driver of our debt. So, okay, what are we hoping for here? What can we reasonably expect in 2025? This is a bit of a laundry list of things that the LISC policy team and our partners are going to bat for. But I wanted to highlight a couple. First, there is, on the tax side, our highest priority always is expanding the low-income housing tax credit. We had a LIHTC provision in the House passed tax bill that stalled in the Senate. Senator Crapo didn't want to move it forward because he wanted to wait and see what happened with the election. And now they have control of both houses. And so from a political strategy, they had no problems with including LIHTC or really passing that bill, but they wanted to have more of their imprint on it. It is relatively likely, but we will need continued advocacy that we could see an expansion of LIHTC in the tax bill that's going to be forthcoming through this reconciliation process. That would include both an increase to the 9% formula credit and also a lowering of the bond test, which would be critically important in those states that are bond capped. We also would love to see, our highest priority on the homeownership side is passage of the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act. We want to see dedicated subsidies similar to LIHTC for owner-occupied housing in economically distressed communities, and that's what this program would do. It would cover appraisal gaps, which we know and we heard yesterday during the pre-conference session are a huge, huge problem in a large majority of America. In fact, the way the bill is written, I believe it's 27 to 28% of rural census tracts qualify under this program. We don't have dedicated subsidy on the supply side, as folks in this room know, for affordable homeownership projects, right? Stripping block grants is not really a sustainable way to scale. And is also just not an effective strategy. So we will be we're actually still continuing to build support for Neighborhood Homes Investment Act. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention, and I want to talk to folks about afterwards as well. We're still building co-sponsors for this current session. We want to get as many folks on these bipartisan bills as possible. So when Congress in earnest starts on the tax bill next session, we can go back to them and say, hey, you guys were on this, let's get you on it again. And let's get your support as Congress pushes through a $4 trillion tax bill to make sure that there are provisions in there that support the work that you're doing in rural communities. We also have, I think, a really legitimate opportunity for the first time in a long time to get a housing bill across Congress, not just the tax provisions, but other non-tax housing bills. Both campaigns really stressed housing needs. And that's because obviously we're in a supply crisis that has driven up costs and is having a disparate impact on our lowest income families. So the Congress flirted a little bit with having a housing bill that was going to go through the Senate. It didn't get there. But I do think there's a reasonable opportunity that we can. We do have a bill that we've worked in partnership with Enterprise, and I know there's folks in the room from them and from the Housing Assistance Council and others in this room, that would give the USDA Rural Housing Service better preservation authorities for their legacy financed stock, the Section 515 program and the 514 and 516 program. That is a very bipartisan bill. Almost every Republican and Democrat on the Senate Banking Committee, the relevant committee, has signed on. It could pass the House Senate floor if it was given an opportunity. I think it may have an opportunity, and I think it's going to have an opportunity with other provisions that are very bipartisan. And so for the folks in this room who've worked with us on that, thank you. And for everyone else, if you would like to work with us on that, we welcome your support. And we want to continue to work on partnership to make sure that that bill is included in any housing package. We also have home repair legislation that we would like to see get across the finish line. And for the Farm Bill in particular, there are two provisions I want to point out, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. The Rural Partnership and Prosperity Act, and we're also trying to include additional resources for childcare facilities. This is also a little too small, but what it's showing you is some key programs. Right now, the House, it shows both the House levels and the Senate levels for key HUD, Treasury Department, and USDA programs. The important thing to keep in mind with this chart is that they did not move a fiscal year 25 spending bill across the finish line, right? We just talked about that it's going to be kicked to March. So sometime around February-ish, if it does get kicked to March, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Congress to finally pass a full year spending bill. And they have even more reason to do that. Because remember I said that they artificially cap their ability to spend money? Well, if they don't pass a full year bill by April, there's an automatic cuts that go into effect for both defense and non-defense programs. That's not going to happen politically. But we are going to need a lot of advocacy and a lot of support from our partners as they consider sizable cuts to federal housing and community development programs. We are in one of the more, I would say, tenuous spending environments in recent memory. And so we'd love to work together to make sure that these critical programs that you're utilizing are at least sustained. And I think we can get there in partnership. For the Farm Bill, also, right, no movement, but maybe some movement next session. It's received a series of short-term extensions, and you may say, well, the Farm Bill, I mean, I do housing and community development work. Well, there is a title in the Farm Bill. It's a rural development title. It's one of the slimmest of the entire bill, but there are opportunities there. We haven't typically got a lot of wins in the Farm Bill as a sector over the last, 5, 10, actually over the last like 2 or 3 Farm Bills. But we have these two provisions. The Rural Partnership and Prosperity Act, which is in the Senate bill, but not in the House, would create a new rural community and economic development program at USDA. It would go to every state, would be allotted a certain amount of money, and then groups could apply for projects for financial assistance. It would also permanently authorize the Rural Partners Network, which right now is funded through, all right, let's go. All right, RPM people. And it would also stand up additional training and technical assistance supports. We're big fans. We want to see this included in a final Farm Bill. We want to see provisions in the RD title that support your work. And so please join us in advocating for that as well. There's also language in the Senate bill that would prioritize childcare funding and certainly currently authorized. All right, Bevan, that one's for you, for currently authorized USDA RD programs. So we're also looking for any opportunity there as well. This chart, which is hard to read, is a little depressing. It's just saying that the Farm Bill is taking longer to pass, but I do think we may have a shot next session. And the important thing to keep in mind too with these bills structurally is that even though the Republicans have control of both houses of Congress, something really important occurred when Senator Thune accepted the leadership position. He committed to maintaining the filibuster, which requires 60 votes for both spending bills and authorizing bills such as the Farm Bill. So in practice, that's really important. That means that there has to be compromise for legislation. It will temper some of the more extreme positions that we may be hearing about in the media because they cannot get there with just 53 votes. They can only do that in the Senate with reconciliation, with moving a tax bill. They will not need the votes, the Republicans, of any Democratic member. They could conceivably do that on their own if they can hold the party and the members together. But to pass a spending bill, to pass a Farm Bill, to pass anything else will require 60 votes in the Senate. So that means 7 Democrats are going to have to ride along for important legislation to pass. And I think that's really going to be helpful with promoting some compromise. I mentioned the rural housing provision in the Farm Bill. This is the Rural Housing Service Reform Act. This bill really, in my opinion, and I think we have some USDA folks potentially in the room, but it really modernizes RHS's authorities. And in my opinion, somewhat brings them up to speed where with HUD has been for quite a long time with their multifamily housing programs. But you can see on the slide, it does a variety of different things. The most notable and the one that gets the most attention is that it allows USDA with their current federally financed affordable rental housing for owners to maintain their project-based rental assistance after loan maturity, which is the Section 521 program. That's really important because similar to a Section 8 project-based rental assistance or project-based voucher contract, you can leverage that long-term contract for debt and equity to recapitalize properties. Right now in USDA, when that mortgage goes away, you lose the 521 rental assistance. That's a preservation risk for the portfolio broadly, and it's also a huge risk to tenants. These are some of our poorest rural low-income Americans. Most are on fixed income. I believe the average income is a little less than $14,000 a year. These are people on Social Security or SSDI. So we need to make sure that we're able to maintain and keep this critically important rural affordable rental housing. And I do think we're going to have a shot at that. The Congress in their, which was great, which we've supported the last couple of years through appropriations language, has allowed USDA to kickstart this for a certain amount of units. But we need to see this baked into law. There's also certain tenant protections. It would improve their Section 542 voucher program, which is also critically important, and make a variety of other changes. It has single family components. It would authorize the native CDFI 502 direct relending program, which has been really successful in moving 502 direct dollars into Indian country where USDA has struggled as the direct lender. And we think that's a really important provision. It would also double the Section 504 loan limits for the repair program. For the Rural Partnership and Prosperity Act, also mentioned this one and those three provisions. This has been, both of these bills have been introduced as standalone pieces of legislation, but as often the case in DC, they can certainly ride with other vehicles. Sometimes that occurs through appropriations, sometimes that occurs through potentially a farm bill. So we're always looking for every opportunity to push what we think are programs and provisions important to your work through any legislative vehicle possible. Okay, so that was a lot. But what is the real advocacy opportunities? And I think they're really, really great. I really, really do. I can't stress that enough. You know, I mentioned we're gonna have a fight on our hands, mostly on the spending side. Okay, so on the tax side, get ready. It's coming quick. This will be the first thing the new Congress pushes. It will be done in 3 months. We need you to be on the lookout for advocacy opportunities. I would love to work with you. I'd love to talk with you afterwards in the exhibit hall. Maybe we missed something. What is not on our list, that big list of priorities? Are there federal programs that you are using that you need help with? Or where are the gaps? We're doing our best to try to go bat for the ones that we think adequately reflect our partners and local offices' priorities, but we really need to know that. So on the tax side, let's work together to make sure we get additional housing credits. Let's work together to make sure that the Neighborhood Home Investment Act becomes law. And let's work on other tax provisions you were thinking are important. Then on the spending side, we're gonna have to work together to sustain these key federal programs. I cannot emphasize that enough. We will have, and for a lot of folks in this room, you think, well, but Mark, it's worked out in the past. The Congress has generally done right. And that's true. And we still need 60 votes in the Senate to get a spending bill across the finish line. But nothing is guaranteed. We will have to fight and advocate for what we want. And I think we can do that successfully as we have in the past. And then I just got a couple big plugs here. Again, come hang out with Jocelyn and I. We want to understand what your priorities are. And I just want to say thanks again, and then see if there are any questions in the room. Thank you for starting the clap. That is a lonely position. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Rose Garcia
Hey, Rose.
with Tierra del Sol Housing in New Mexico. And my request, if you could send that presentation to all of us.
Okay.
We really need that. And we need right now to organize a policy group and legislative information, please, as soon as you can.
Yeah, that is definitely possible. And for the rural team too, for Nadia and others' consideration, maybe we do try to have like a policy committee or a subset of groups that are interested in that. I don't mean to put that on us, but I would love that. One of the things that Jocelyn and I really would love to know, and I think one of the value adds of being here, is we also want to know if you want to work with us. We want to know if you want to work in partnership as we approach this new Congress and administration. So please come see us if so. We're able to collect that information, and then we will be sure to work with you. I work with a lot of folks in this room, both on regulatory issues and legislative matters, but sometimes it's only if I know you or we've worked together in the past. So please come see us if you haven't heard from me and would like to work together.
I will also say that there's an app for this conference. If you haven't already downloaded it, you can go to Hello Crowd and then just search for the Rural LISC Seminar. And the presentation is already loaded there with another attached PDF, and you can pull it up right from your phone. So.
Thanks, Mark. Kevin O'Connor from New York.
Hey, Kevin.
On the Neighborhood Home Investment Act, while I would love to have a subsidy, a tax credit to do home ownership, and I will certainly do it in low-income census tracts, why are we limiting it to low-income census tracts? Given the history of this country, with home ownership in particular, it's a fraction of the area where I serve in the Hudson Valley. I think it's a major flaw. I've been saying so for several years. We keep going forward with it. I don't understand why we're limiting it to, I get it, investment in low-income communities, sure, but home ownership in particular. People should have choice. Again, I will do it in low-income communities all day long. I just want the opportunity to do it in opportunity areas as well.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Neighborhood homes is a very targeted tool, right? It's designed to cover the appraisal gap for owner-occupied rehab or new construction. So where the cost to rehab or build exceeds the sales price, the net of that would be covered by the credit over a 5-year period. Neighborhood homes has been around as an idea for a long time. It actually goes back all the way to the second Bush administration. So to answer your question directly, it's more modest in terms of its revenue impacts to the federal government because it's only covering the gap. There are, Kevin, other tax proposals that are being formulated more broadly around affordable homeownership supply subsidy, not just targeted to appraisal gap issues in economically distressed communities. We've gone all in on it because we've been able to build a really strong bipartisan support. We see it as even more needed. It's not to discount the need for subsidy in higher income or higher opportunity communities. But the idea has been that this is both a neighborhood, that there's market failure in those as well for affordable homeownership, but it's, I would argue, more pronounced in lower income communities. So it's been, I think, both because of the inertia from when this idea originally took place, also to the political aspects that it has less of a revenue impact on the federal budget, has been some of the kind of key parts. But hear you, I will say both candidates propose new tax credits for affordable homeownership supply. There are interest groups in DC that are working on those that are not targeted to low-income communities. That is something that may possibly also pass, but we would also like to see dedicated subsidy for those areas in which practitioners can't do projects at any sort of scale on an annual basis.
Hi.
Sure. Hey.
After I ask my question, I'm hoping you say, oh, that's already been handled.
Okay.
And I just don't know about it. My name is Terry Morin. I'm here from Western North Carolina. So many of you have come to help us. and most of you have left. FEMA's still there, but our housing and economic development and workforce has changed forever. What is planned after it's no longer considered an emergency?
Yeah, so FEMA and the SBA, right, provide the immediate response after storms. HUD, through the CDBG Disaster Recovery Program, is the long-term recovery source from the federal government. Unfortunately, the Congress has not yet passed what they would call a supplemental bill to provide resources for both FEMA, SBA, or replenishing or funding, actually, the HUD CDBG DR account. For folks in this room who have gone through disasters, you know that HUD's ability to get money out through the DR program is slow. And it's so slow, it sometimes takes up to 2 years. Part of that is a statutory issue where it's not a formally authorized program, which is something we've been also working on, is to permanently authorize the DR program so HUD can get money out quicker. It's anticipated in the next funding bill that will push the federal budget through, let's say February or March. Congress will be refilling the coffers with a disaster recovery bill that is expected to fly with it. Because of politics, they may not fully fund the total needs. There's been talk that in the next CR, there may be an additional $30 billion attached to it. I'm not yet clear where that will go, but to put it in perspective, Hawaii has not yet received DR dollars from the fires last year. That is, in my opinion, incomprehensible, but that is what is occurred. There is bipartisan support for disaster recovery legislation, but I think they're only going to partially fund all the eligible disasters during the last 2 years because they may want to have offsets for the second slug of disaster spending. But to answer your point directly, it will come through the HUD CDBG DR program, which will flow through the state, but it's not yet known when that money for Western North Carolina will occur. Will it occur in the next CR that punts it through spring, or the next one later in the year?
Hi, Jeff Morgan from Chispa in the Monterey Bay Area in California. My question was this: we've heard a lot in the news about institutional investors that have been buying what would have been first-time home buyer homes, so for people that are just starting out, and instead turning those into rentals. Is there any concern or legislation that's been considered around regulating that to basically make sure that we don't deny opportunities to folks who want to buy these single-family homes?
Yeah, there has. Thanks for asking that. There's actually been bipartisan bills introduced that would strip some of the tax benefits institutional investors have for purchasing single-family properties. These are typically heavily concentrated in BIPOC neighborhoods, and we've seen in certain markets a large concentration, which is lowering affordable homeownership opportunities. We've also seen there's been a variety of property management problems, often as these houses are turned into rentals and managed at a very large scale. I actually think that this is a place where current Senator Vance, before he becomes vice president, was also shining a bit of a light on the banking committee. Some of the institutional investment activity, I think, that's been occurring lessen because of the threat of a legislative response. I'm not sure if that will go through, but there has been more bipartisan attention to the subject. It is also a place you could see potentially, although it doesn't to make sense in some ways ideologically, certain regulatory actions may occur in the next administration. So yeah, there are bills, there are bipartisan bills that have been introduced mostly on the tax side. I don't think that would fly with the tax bill, those provisions, but we've seen some of the institutional investors also start to create partnerships with nonprofits. There's been a lot of highlighting of Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership has a partnership with Pretrium, I believe that's how it's pronounced, a large institutional investor where they get a first look at properties. And I think a lot of that is motivated by a lot of the media scrutiny that's occurred and that they know that they're under the political limelight.
Mark, we have some questions in the chat for you. This is from Naima Malik. I understand you cannot certain full fiscal year projections / budget predictions due to uncertainties in the political climate. However, what strategies would you recommend for adapting to potential shifts that may come with a Republican-dominated political landscape? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really important when to be really developing relationships with your members of Congress in district or state. We do a lot of just old school shoe leather advocacy in DC, meeting with members, trying to show data and impact on the importance of these federal programs. So if you don't have to come to DC for that, right? You have district offices in your communities or close by for your House members or potentially for your Senate representation. Go talk to them about the work you're doing. Develop relationships, make the time, right? If you can. I know you're all quite busy, but the more you can share at a local level what you're doing with elected representatives and particularly their staff, the more likely they will go to bat. And they may not publicly go to bat for some of the stuff that you're interested in, but they can do it behind the scenes. So maybe they don't sign on a Dear Colleague letter to other members of Congress saying, you know what, I want to see more funding for the home program or for this USDA rural housing program. That's fine. If they behind the scenes tell the appropriators, these are my top 3 priorities, and one of them is what you included, that's a win. And that happens all the time, and more with Republicans having more reticence to sign on to public documents around spending bills. But behind the scenes, when they're talking to the Appropriations Committee staff, when key decisions are being made on spending bills, they're definitely letting them know what they want to see. Invite them out for ribbon cuttings. Talk to them, right, and get them out and show some good media on projects that you're financing or programs that you're running. Those are really important. I know many of folks in this room already have those relationships, but if you don't, let us know. We've got some really good documents, and we can provide some support as well on how to do that.
Thank you, Mark. This is from Dwayne Yoder. Do you think Project 2025 will be used as the Republican blueprint for budget and policy decisions?
So folks may have saw during the election cycle that an outside group produced a blueprint, mostly with former Trump administration officials, on planned actions for federal agencies. I think the answer is a partial yes. Like a lot of stuff we see, some is potentially just talk to motivate folks to vote in the last election cycle, but some of it is not. Some of it is a blueprint for what the new administration wants to do in terms of running federal agencies. I think one thing to keep in mind is a lot of the actions that you see, I think some are pretty obvious, right? We know certain regulatory priorities of the current administration will not be a priority of the next administration. Will those be halted, potentially rescinded? Yes, very much. If you want to talk about what those are in detail, come hang out with me at the booth. I'll get into it with you. But other things that they want to do that have made the headlines often are, I think we're going to see a fair amount of litigation broadly through the court system. Some things potentially cannot be done under existing authority that this new administration may test out. And I think there'll be a lot of opportunities for sign-on letters. That's another place where we can kind of show support for that federal agencies important to our work. If you're concerned about what's going to happen to the USDA Rural Housing Service, if you're concerned about what's going to happen to HUD, if you're concerned about what's going to happen to the CDFI fund, then I think most of us are, because most of us really rely on these critical programs to support our work. Then let's work together on that. Let's put some heat on the administration through sign-on letters and advocacy to make sure that the staff at those agencies are really able to do their work, right? And that there's enough resources for them to manage and deploy their funding. But I would say a lot of it will, some of the more extreme positions, if they happen, will go through the federal court system. Any other questions? Oh.
One more from the chat, last one. Is there anything in the tax package to increase/protect the value of low-income housing tax credits? Our big concern is that the values are very low and will stay low with new corporate tax cuts.
Yes, right. So this will be interesting, right? This is a great advocacy opportunity. So I mentioned what we will definitely see in the first 100 days is a giant tax bill, a giant, like $4 trillion giant. That last tax bill that passed the House that had LIHTC, but that got stuck in the Senate, that was $80 billion. So this is a magnitude of revenue far exceeding that. So it's a really big concern. So say we are able to expand LIHTC, right? We get additional 9% credits. We lost 12.5% on that formula during the last couple of years. So we're in a declining subsidy environment as it is on the supply side. And maybe we get the bond test lowered. But what happens if the corporate tax rate is lowered again, lower than even the current rate that was lowered in 2017 under the Trump tax cuts? We could take a pricing hit, right? We're expanding the credit, but we're lowering corporate tax liability. There are a variety of other credits that banks have been buying. There's a lot of IRA energy credits. They make more money on those than on LIHTC. So we're gonna have some potential headwinds there. It's not yet clear if a reduction in corporate tax rates will go through. But as you can imagine right now, even though the new Congress is not yet in, groups are pushing, including LISC and others, what we want in this mammoth tax bill. And I do think there is some rightful reason to be a little concerned about what happens to the value of some of these credits if we reduce corporate tax rates. We saw in 2017 a slight reduction in pricing associated with the reduction in that. And for these institutions, there's only a certain amount of corporate tax liability, right? So then it becomes, what are they choosing? Now, I don't think that anyone's going to just wholesale back out of LIHTC for CRA lenders, but I do think it could have a reduction in pricing. Well, I think that's it for me. But I, again, just want to say thanks very much for the opportunity to speak with you all today. This is one of my favorite events all year because I get to hang out with our community-based practitioner partners. And yeah, come see us later today. Thanks.
Well, I am back, and I know you have been sitting for quite some time, but I want to first just begin by thanking Mark for that comprehensive and digestible update about what is happening on the policy front. Every time I hear Mark speak, I am amazed at how he makes the information easy for us to digest. And so please show him your appreciation through a round of applause. I also just want to again thank our speakers who were a part of the fireside chat focused on maximizing partnerships. There were 4 key themes that I heard throughout each fireside chat. The first one was listen to the community about the needs. They are the experts, and you are the experts in that room. And so I hope that you know we're not just saying to you to listen. As an organization, we are listening also. The second thing was remain adaptable because things change often and things change quickly. The third thing was create public-private partnerships, and that's related to the fourth thing, which was make sure those partnerships are mutually beneficial and grounded in trust. Again, I want to thank the speakers who were a part of the fireside chats for sharing their experiences working with rural LISC. Now, if you haven't figured this out by now, Nadia mapped out a pretty thorough run of show for the entire seminar, and she gave me a lot of talking points for this next segment. But I recognize you've been sitting in your chairs in this room for quite some time, and you're probably ready for a break. You're probably ready to interact with each other, and you're excited about lunch. I am looking forward to hearing from Abe Hudson from the Walton Family Foundation. I had a chance to meet Abe earlier. And so, Nadia, if it's okay, I'm going to scale back some of those talking points. She said only suggestions. Um, well, you all know LISC and you know the work that we do primarily through Rural LISC. I am the executive vice president for local and national programs. So that includes Rural LISC, but it also includes 37 local offices across the country. Rural LISC reaches 49 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. Local and national programs also includes about a dozen national programs, and you're going to have a chance to hear from some of them today. All of what we do through local and national programs, it's really focused on three key areas: building community capacity that helps to advance housing and healthy communities, providing financing to support community and economic development projects, and then managing funds that support businesses and real estate investments in underinvested communities. Since we were founded in 1979, LISC has invested almost $30 billion in cities and counties across America. And I have to say, I think we're probably just getting started. So it is really an exciting time to be here in this room with all of you. You're going to have a chance after lunch to participate in what we're calling a power exhibit hall. And we have several individuals from our teams who are going to be sharing quick intros about the work they will showcase in the exhibit hall. So I'm going to ask them to come to the side of the stage at this time. I'm going to, oh, they're standing right over there, fantastic. I'm going to remind them that they have probably about 60 seconds each because you're ready for a break and you're ready to eat. Did I get that right? I got a thumbs up. All right. So I want to challenge you to think about the long-term impacts on communities of the programs and think about the ideas you will hear throughout this seminar and think about how, as one of my colleagues said earlier, and I say often, we can ensure that our work is not transactional, but instead transformational, and that our work moves the needle on pressing community needs, again, across the country. So in this Power Exhibit Hall, you're going to see tables lining the room. Those tables are going to be staffed by program leads for our core programmatic areas, everything from health to safety and justice, from housing to economic development. We are encouraging you to branch out and talk to the program leads about the work they support across the country that may be relevant to your communities. We know that you work with Rural LISC, but we really are one LISC. We are one big organization, and so we have lots of resources that are available. So at this time, I'm going to invite Krista Vinson to the stage, and she's going to talk about broadband. But then in addition to talking about that, she's going to introduce about 17 other individuals. And if they do what they're supposed to do, 60 seconds each, that means we're going to have you out of here in about 20 minutes ahead of schedule so that you can have a break, get something to eat, network, and then hear from Abe Hudson. So Krista, welcome to the stage.
Well, thanks, Dr. Ruth, and it's so great to see our LISC colleagues here. Excited to hear from you. I will quickly talk about broadband. I want you to visit my colleague Joshua Williams at the Expo or connect with Katrin on the IWB team to hear about our two digital equity programs. One is the Broadband Help Hub, which offers rapid, free technical assistance for broadband planning. There's $42 billion now available through states to fund broadband networks in rural communities, and covered populations named in the legislation are the primary focus of this program. So we want to give you the resources to take actionable steps to bring affordable, reliable, universal broadband infrastructure to homes and businesses in your communities. We are also infusing the 30 state, 100 strong, community partner strong rural digital equity network with new resources, technical assistance, and fund development training in 2025. So please come find Joshua, get our contact information, apply for these programs through direct links in the QR codes, and pick up our resources. We can't wait to hear from you. And with that, I would like to invite Nat Lieber to come talk to us about affordable housing.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Matthew Leber. I am with our national housing team. We ostensibly serve as our in-house consultants to our 37-odd urban programs, as well as our rural programs across the country in non-participating jurisdictions. And so we tend to focus on a couple of silos, including ideations around the innovative and complex transactions, housing funds, and we've done everything from help craft the LIHTC state credit language for the state of Pennsylvania to creating private equity products in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we are at your service. We look forward to speaking with you and look forward to talking through any housing challenges you might face. Thank you.
Katrin Kark and Laura D'Alessandro, Income and Wealth Building.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katrin Kerk.
And I'm Laura D'Alessandro, and together we lead LISC's Income and Wealth Building team.
And our work centers around people and their career and financial goals and dreams. The work we do advances this mission. We work with trusted partners all around the country like yourselves, and we work very closely with our colleagues in LISC Rural and in our LISC Urban offices as well. And many of you may know our Financial Opportunity Center program. That's our signature strategy that integrates financial coaching, employment services, and income supports. And this work is only possible because of all of the wonderful work that you do. It was really exciting to hear the shout outs to this work and the local innovations that partners have put on it in some of the fireside chats this morning. The partners, are really the engine of this strategy. And, we in the national program with our LISC colleagues are really the supporters of helping you all drive that forward.
And the Financial Opportunity Center program is just one part of what we do. We do so much more around homeownership, credit building, digital inclusion, and skilling, green jobs, green strategies. Come talk to us. We would love to hear what you're doing and see how we can combine our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel McIntosh with LISC Innovative Investments and Project Financing.
Hello, everyone. I'm up here to talk about our innovative investment products. Some of you have used these tools. We have early stage project financing, oftentimes used for pre-development for your LIHTC projects or other housing projects. That is at 0%. And then we also have been piloting some new products in that same space for small businesses. So we have a national program that can reach any community in Puerto Rico for diverse suppliers. These are for your businesses that maybe have their first contract with a city or county, and they're ready to take on the next one with the state or the nearby hospital. And they need that growth capital to get that insurance to do the next contract, or to get the equipment, or to have some working capital to do that. And then we also have some venture financing products. Those are in the restaurant space nationally, as well as some programs that reach rural communities in Colorado and Massachusetts. So come and see me and talk about it more.
Peter Matheson with the National Equity Fund. Thanks, Peter.
Hi, everybody. My name is Peter. I'm a Vice President of Originations at National Equity Fund. NEF was created by LISC in 1987, and we're a national nonprofit multifamily affordable real estate investment manager. Our mission is to deliver innovative and collaborative financial solutions to expand the creation and preservation of affordable housing. What's that mean? Primarily, we have been a syndicator of low-income housing tax credits. We also offer workforce preservation and pre-development lending platforms. Since 1987, we've invested more than $24 billion into more than 248,000 homes nationwide. We invest everywhere, including rural areas. So we would love to connect and support this group however we can. Got a table out there. I have a one-pager with my contact information on it, but chase me down today or tomorrow. Would love to talk. Thanks.
Sam Ruark with LISC Green Initiatives.
Hey everyone. We've had fire and now lightning. I'm going to talk about clean energy. So as Director of Green Initiatives, we focus on doing green building technical assistance through workshops and consultations, helping people to understand rating systems, how to get energy audits, and how to essentially implement energy efficiency upgrades for existing and new buildings. We also help local offices and LISC rural and community partners do project design and development. So whatever type of sustainability needs you have in your community, we can work with you to help you understand what the opportunities are for putting in place innovative projects and programs to really further the sustainability mission of your organizations. And then third, we also focus on helping you navigate funding opportunities. There are many grants out there, federal, state. Also, there's a lot of private philanthropy as well that's in the sustainability space now, so we can help you develop the opportunity to find those grants and also find tax rebates and incentives as well. And I'm also on the project team for the new LISC Green, which is the implementation arm for our Power Forward communities through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund to really help scale the clean energy movement throughout the country with innovative financing, technical assistance, training for developers and contractors, and also workforce development as well. So I have a table out there. We also have these free books too, What's Possible in Investing. So please come pick up one of those as well. Thank you.
Bevan Parker Turkitz with Childcare and Early Learning.
Morning, everyone. For more than 2 decades, LISC has, oh gosh, I was trying to stay on script, so I kept to time, and now I'm messing this up. All right, for more than 2 decades, LISC has worked to build the supply of quality childcare and early learning infrastructure, particularly in underserved and historically under-resourced communities. We do so in the form of facilities development and organizational capacity building through technical assistance, grant making, and loans. We work in partnership with key community stakeholders, including educators and the families they serve, to build out hyper-localized strategies focused on supporting childcare providers, especially female entrepreneurs of color, to meet them where they are and connect them with the right range of technical assistance services and capital products. These are curated responses that work to protect the rich diversity of our communities of care, ensuring both home and center-based locations run by individuals and members of those communities have access to the right complement of services and supports to meet their needs wherever they are in their business's life cycle. Come see me to talk about your community needs and hear more about our rich set of technical resources and guidance documents. Thanks.
Our much missed former colleague on the rural team, Christine Woods, Health.
For my talent, I have a poem. In areas where healthcare can feel so far, we work to bridge gaps and raise the bar. With healthcare and food and need greater supply, we seek to help small towns, big and small towns to thrive. We support a healthcare workforce that's strong and trained to lead, ensuring communities can meet their need. With transportation links that bring both care and more, we open Uber paths to opportunity's door. Equitable food access guides our way through programs helping nourish every day. Our Healthcare Access Fund extends its hand, ensuring care is close across the land. The health team builds up bridges, clears the path, supporting all neighborhoods in their craft. We center local voices, lead with heart through models where inclusion plays a part. A partnership with Peloton inspires to foster fitness, health, and shared desires. For health is wealth, a truth that's very clear, a guiding light we hold most dear. If you have thoughts, ideas, or ways to team, let's work together to build a dream. Come find my booth, let's talk and plan anew. I'd love to partner and collaborate with all of you.
That's so great. John Connolly with, Safety and Justice.
My goodness, what an incredible, difficult act to follow. Almost impossible. Kudos on the artistry. John Connolly, Senior Program Officer with the Safety and Justice team at LISC. We are LISC's oldest national program, a 30-year history of creating safer and more just neighborhoods and communities across this country. So don't have enough time to go through our entire portfolio of work, but I have one very exciting grant opportunity that I hope all of you will take advantage of, and that is the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative, or RVCRI. Funded by our friends of the United States Department of Justice. This was referenced by our CEO, Michael Pugh, earlier in the morning. $2.6 million out the door since 2021 to address specific violent crime challenges in rural jurisdictions across the country. Have $600,000 that I need to get out the door by next spring. There will be a competitive but very simple application process that will be released early next year. I have the RVCRI one-pager at my resource table. I look forward to chatting with you about how that application could support your jurisdiction's eligible applicants or local law enforcement. But in true LISC partnership history, we want to make sure that community-based and resident-led organizations are at the table and creating safer neighborhoods. And I want to call out one current RVCRI partnership here with you, which is our friends from the borough of Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. Chief Michael Hobbs, feel free to stand up quickly. Michael Gursky from Tamaqua Area Community Partnership, and Ali Parado from SARC, a local service provider. Feel free to reach out to them and hear about how RVCRI has impacted their community, and I look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.
Beverly Smith, Beverly Smith, Sports and Recreation. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Beverly Smith, I'm Vice President for LISC National Sports and Recreation. We actually were started back in 1998 with the support of the NFL for one specific project in San Diego. And we said, well, why are we just doing this in San Diego leading up to Super Bowl when there is a need for safe recreation spaces in all of the communities that we work in across the country? So they said, okay, we're only going to be with you for 5 years. And here we are 25 years later, over 450 fields later across the country. And having a conversation with them, we really want to work with rural communities. We actually, through our Dick's Sporting Goods, just funded 2 projects in Mississippi. So we're hoping that you come by our table, talk to us. It's about creating safe recreation spaces, as well as also engaging our youth and exposing them to the entire industry around sports. So come see us. Want to work with you really well and soon. So thank you. And to all my colleagues, thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Elizabeth Demetriou with LISC Economic Development. Thank you. And next year, I'm going to have an interpretive dance because I love that poem. So what does inclusive economic development look like? It means ensuring that every community has the opportunity to thrive, that every entrepreneur has access to the resources and capital that they need to start and grow, and that local leaders like you are empowered to build stronger, more equitable local economies. I lead the National Economic Development Team, and we provide strategic guidance, innovative solutions, resources, and networking opportunities to bring this vision to life in communities across the country. Our work bridges community and economic development, aligning local priorities with regional opportunities. We go beyond planning to drive actionable strategies that lead to sustainable impact. I hope you'll all visit us at booth 11.
where you can learn more about our work. One of the big values that we bring is highlighting the new and flexible community-driven approaches that you're all working on. So hopefully you'll come hear from us on some of the work of your colleagues. Thank you.
Tasha Ash with National Capacity Building. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon. I think we have about 6 minutes before we're officially at 12. I am Tasha Ash. I'm a senior program officer with Capacity Building. I feel that I have probably the most important job at LISC, and I know you've heard so many things and think, why did she say that? Capacity building is the engine to all these great programs. Our program is to work with you to figure out how we can help you with great organizational practices that are the bedrock to impactful programs, strong organizations. And we do that by providing tools. You'll get some outside. Hopefully you'll come see me. Training, best practices, facilitating networking. Those are some of the things that we do to make sure that you have a strong, impactful program. So hopefully you'll come talk to me about all the boring stuff that I think is really sexy, but about boards and financial management. All those things are an incredible, important part into ensuring that we make an impact in the community. Thank you.
Hello again. I'm pinch hitting for Ethan Guy, who is the director of the Civic Solutions Program. And I just want to, looking at all my colleagues, we have a full soccer team plus all the subs to help you go overtime on anything you need to do in terms of community development. So huge, huge thanks to all my colleagues here. In terms of the Civic Solutions Program, it is the program that works most closely with HUD's technical assistance teams. We do our work with HUD through their Community Compass TA program, which is the TA program that provides technical assistance to HUD grantees and those that get direct funding from HUD. So a lot of the larger state and cities. We provide help with products and tools that are available to all. Lots of toolkits, lots of resources, but we also do deep dives in technical assistance and long-term assignments with these stakeholders. We also are working with HUD on their DCTA program. And the DCTA program is one that pays attention to those communities that are 50,000 and below. So a lot of rural communities can take advantage of direct technical assistance. And this direct technical assistance is long-term. It could stretch beyond 6 months, a year, and even 2 years sometimes. We really make sure that we're working in community with those civic organizations to help strengthen them. And we know that this work is in partnership. So along with my colleagues doing organizational development and capacity building for nonprofits, we believe that that partnership with strong civic solutions is one that enables better outcomes through that partnership between local government, municipalities, and the stakeholders and communities that they serve. So please come out and talk to our team at the exhibit hall about how your municipality, your towns, your communities can work through the DCTA program to really get deep dive technical assistance for community development needs. Thank you.
Nika King with the HBCU internship program. Thank you.
So we are newbies. We've been in existence for 2 years. So we are really grateful that a little over a year ago, our CEO joined and we expanded our program. When we first started this program, over 95% of the interns didn't know what a CDFI was. So we have some supervisors in the room, Julianne from Rural, Tiff, Emily, Keegan, Tasha from Capacity, Mark from Policy. You know, it takes a village when you're working with talent development, so just wanted to say thank you there. What we know about HBCUs is that many have been operating on limited shoestring budgets for years, yet they produce amazing talent. So to date, we've worked with over 40 HBCUs in 2 years. We've placed interns at LISC. We put over 22 interns at LISC offices, and we put interns at over 25 CDFI partners. We've also given our interns life coaches, financial coaches, and career coaches because we don't fire our interns. We correct them and we coach them. Today, we've put over 50,000 hours of interns learning and growing into the ecosystem, and we're proud of that. So they are working on amazing projects, but we also teach them ADP, HR paperwork, the pace of work. You don't have 2 weeks to get this done. You have to the end of the day. So to date, we've had 5 interns that have full-time positions to Joe. Joe said 2 earlier. So we are celebrating small beginnings. But what's important is that we have several interns who are wanting to work in this space. So we have resumes currently that we have out there. So the interns have shared that this opportunity has given them the ability to understand the CDFI space and that they would not be here without us. So I just got the sign. I'll leave you with this. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. Thank you.
Stacy Grant, LISC AmeriCorps.
Thank you. Before I start, I wanted to humbly recognize and express my gratitude for the people of the South Wind for the opportunity to be here today on their ancestral lands. I'm Stacy Grant, and I believe that through gratitude, we can find happiness. And gratitude for me flows through the 30 years that we have had the LISC AmeriCorps program. So John, I'm gonna do some research and find out who came first. But we have a triple bottom line impact with the LISC AmeriCorps program. It's for the person serving, for the organization that we partner with, and for the community that that organization serves. So we are specifically designed to find someone from your hometown to serve as an AmeriCorps member with your organization to address local needs. So whether you need to find a new project manager or a financial coach or anything that your organization is doing, or to partner with any of the programs that my esteemed colleagues have talked about, we're your how. And so come talk to me about how you might be able to get a LISC AmeriCorps program, a LISC AmeriCorps member at your site. And I just also want to thank Nadia and the entire rural team for inviting me here today to talk about the thing that I love. So come have some passion with me at my table. Take care.
Well, thanks again to Mark and the policy team. Thanks again to all of our national program partners. And closing us out, thank you so much, Monique Wright with LISC People and Culture.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monique Wright. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at LISC. I've been there for about a year, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the People and Culture team. So we are a growing team. We handle everything from payroll to benefits, and also my specialty area is working with our LISC affinity groups, which a lot of the leads are in the room today. So thank you so much for doing some amazing cultural work for the institution, and also thinking about really serious issues around how do we increase our diversity? How do we think about people who are not in the room? How do we think about global issues that are affecting staff? Our main role is to support staff at the agency, because without the people, without our colleagues, LISC would not even be possible. So I'm so fortunate and so honored to be here, and also so happy to support the amazing work that LISC does across the country. So thank you so much.
Okay, we are almost done. And this is the last thing you all will hear besides Abe, me and Abe, before you do not have to be in this room for the rest of the day. So we switched it around a little bit. We're gonna do a really quick address from our sponsor for lunch, and then you all can go over and get some lunch, and then either come back in here or you can go somewhere else to eat. And then the tour is next. So the exhibit hall is out there. You'll have an hour to go through the exhibit hall. I'm really excited for the exhibit hall. Over the last couple of years, Nadia and I have worked really, really hard to figure out how to better integrate and better educate our national team on all the things that our rural partners are doing across the country. And it's just incredible to see all of them step up and come out today and share all of the resources that they have with you. So please go visit them at the exhibit hall. Again, once this is done, you will go to the exhibit hall, and then the tour will be after that. So if you look at your name tag, you'll have a green sticker. If you got in on the tour early enough, some of you did not. We were full for both the Clinton Library and for the tour. So if you do not have a sticker, we're actually going to ask you to come out and check to see if there's a spot open. If you do have a sticker and you're not planning on attending the tour or the dinner tonight, please go let the registration table know, and they'll open a spot up for somebody who's still on the waiting list. So you can come see us out there too if you have any questions about that. So I just am honored to be able to bring to stage the sponsor of today's networking luncheon and our personal friends, the Walton Family Foundation. And before I pass the mic over to Abe, I just wanted to share a little bit about our partnership with Walton. Walton has provided not only funding, but partnership to support our team to layer this very important work, best practice community and economic development work into Mississippi and Arkansas. I cannot say enough about the way that Kim Davis and Abe Hudson work. Over the last few years I've worked with them, I've been so inspired by the way they approach this very local Delta-based work. Their passion for finding existing partners that they can lift up to do the work, and for collaborating with other funders and intermediaries who can maximize the impact for their communities is pretty incredible to see. And while it keeps me very, very busy, perhaps one of my favorite partnerships right now is the Delta Philanthropy Forum, where funders from across Mississippi and Arkansas are coming together to figure out how to impact Mississippi and Arkansas better together. Walton saw the importance of this and brought the funding to build a sustainable plan for this group. And if you want to learn more about Delta Philanthropy Forum, they do have a website now, which is very exciting. And you can find that at deltaphilanthropy.org. Now, I want to welcome a friend that is on speed dial on my cell phone for many of the how can we solve this problem together conversations that we've had over the years. Dr. Abe M. Hudson Jr., Program Officer at Walton Family Foundation.
Good afternoon. I'm really thrilled to get a chance to share just for a couple minutes. I hate to be between you all and lunch, but certainly want to take a minute to just talk about how thrilled Kim Davis and I, Kim, are you in the room? Hope so, maybe not. Kim Davis and I share in this work at the Walton Family Foundation. We specifically work in the rural Delta area. Everybody say rural and Delta. Those are two buzzwords that really catch our attention, rural and Delta. We are a part of the home region team for the Walton Family Foundation, and the home region team consists of work being done in Bentham, Arkansas, and Washington County, Arkansas. Our work specifically in the Delta is in Phillips County, Jefferson County in Arkansas, and where I live in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Real thrill that we're here to be a sponsor. We're honored and to be able to participate. I know Little Rock is a really cool place to have this conference, but I also heard that some of you went to Coachella, California. Is that right? How many of you all were in Coachella? Nice, nice, nice. I hate to disappoint you in the fact that Little Rock it has been a much more exciting trip. And I'll give you one thing that makes me feel that way. Sometimes people think about areas and geography and a certain feeling comes to mind. As I was standing over there a moment ago and they were opening the doors for your lunch that you're going to be eating in just a moment, when I think about the Delta and I think about Arkansas and Mississippi, I think about light, I think about hope. And as they were opening up those doors and I was about to prepare to share with you all, it was helpful because you have been in the dark kind of, or it was not as well lit. That is the way I feel as I drive through my Mississippi Delta, my Arkansas Delta. And I'm hopeful that many of you all will begin to feel the same way if you don't already feel that way. I think our sponsorship is important here because for number one, of the specific work LISC helps us to execute, our strategy in brief is education and youth engagement, economic asset building, and coalition and capacity building. Number two, I think LISC does a yeoman's job of supporting Delta philanthropy reform, which Emily alluded to earlier. I won't get into the details, but some of their work includes education, coalition, building, and infrastructure. And it's continuing to evolve because we want to really tackle the solutions in the Delta. And last but not least, this is important because you're one of the few organizations that really dig deep and have roots in rural communities. I know because you help us to solve so many of the problems and challenges that we have, and we're very solutions oriented and solutions based. So thank you all for helping us to come up with those solutions as well as others in this room. To all of you, I encourage you to do three things: to build new relationships over these next couple of days, or, re-energize those relationships that you already have. Number two, consider solutions that other folks have already executed. Sometimes we are so driven by coming up with new solutions, we don't partake of solutions that are there or from some of our colleagues. And lastly, I want to say, let's prepare for 2025. I am so thrilled and excited to have this opportunity to work with the Walton Family Foundation in the area where I grew up, where I live, where I work, and I have to believe that many of you all feel the same way about rural America and the Delta. So with that being said, please enjoy the rest of the conference, partake of all these relationships. Let's commit to making sure that the conversations that we have are going to translate into real solutions in 2025. Look forward to chatting with you all during the interim, and enjoy your lunch. And I think I'm supposed to be bringing Emily back up. So Emily, come on back up.
So lunch is over that way. You all can get up and head over there. It's a buffet style. Julianne will share in probably about 10 minutes a little more about the tour and where to pick up the shuttle for the dinner. So we'll share a little more logistics information with you shortly.